My entitled sister and her husband tried to hijack my business, as my boyfriend and I brought them into our business simply as a favor, because after we found out they've been trying to tell people they're the owners of our business, we decided to put our foot down and kick them out entirely, resulting in my entire family turning on me in a way that honestly I never expected. Okay, so my sister and I had a falling out, and my husband and I want to know if we should apologize or just move on. For a bit of background, I've been running a business for quite a few years now, and it was small, but I never really tried to make it anything big. I was content just getting by and doing something I enjoyed. Eventually, I started dating someone who had the time, energy, and resources to start helping me grow. He rebranded my business and it grew. It was fun, and eventually I got my partner more involved. He went to a trade show with me, and we got an idea together to grow the business even more. My boyfriend even had a great idea to include my sister and her spouse, because we thought it would benefit them financially and bring us closer. But my God, this was a huge mistake. Even though my boyfriend and I invested about 50% into the expansion, and my sister and her sister-in-law's husband invested nothing, it wasn't long before they started telling everyone it was their business. I would talk to people who would tell me they talked to the owners, which was funny to me because it was actually my boyfriend and I who risked everything financially to purchase the expansion and grow it. We just invited them to come along for free, and we even gave my brother-in-law a job because he had been unemployed for years. Well, it all went downhill from there. My boyfriend and I aren't big on attention, so we didn't really care that people thought my sister and brother-in-law owned the business, but then they started giving their friends huge discounts, sometimes even for free, and they were doing it without our consent. On top of all of that, my boyfriend and I found out that my dad, who handled accounting, was actually paying my brother-in-law double what we discussed for working for the company. And yeah, all of this was without our knowledge. Meanwhile, my boyfriend declined to take a salary for all the work he was doing for what was now our business, even after we had invested his own personal money into it. I got upset enough and I tried talking to my sister, and my boyfriend tried talking to my brother-in-law, but things quickly fell apart. My brother-in-law started telling my boyfriend that he wasn't going to do parts of the job. So my boyfriend and I took on all the work while my brother-in-law was making a double salary, and my boyfriend was taking nothing. I didn't even increase my salary while we were trying to grow. We realized that maybe inviting them to join us was a mistake, but we truly had the best of intentions. We tried to find ways to talk to them, but they got passive-aggressive, and recently, my boyfriend finally told my brother-in-law to get lost. Well, he basically said he would go do that, and now they're no longer working for us. Now, through all of this, my parents have sided with my sister and brother-in-law, but they haven't even heard our side. And this whole situation hurts because my sister has always been my best friend, but I can't figure out what we did. We have asked, but at this point, they're only rallying the troops against us. I've tried talking to my sister, who won't respond to me, and I want to protect my partner, and I think he was justified after having dealt with my brother-in-law's bad attitude for weeks. If we did something wrong, we really just want to apologize. So truly, are we at fault here because we just don't know what to do? Dude, your sister is so stupid it's not even funny. Seriously, they suck so much. You brought them onto this as some kind of like favor to be like, okay, we're gonna help you out and we're gonna help you figure out your life and like be involved in the family business. Like even your dad's involved in this, so like it makes sense to bring them on board as well. But it honestly sounds like all of them are crooked and very corrupt. Like your dad's going behind your back and paying your brother-in-law like double the salary he would normally be getting. Meanwhile, you and your boyfriend are getting paid like nothing, and they're trying to sit there and be like, oh yeah, we own this business, this is ours. But it's like, dude, you haven't put any money down on this. This is most definitely not your business, and it's like, why would you try to claim it is? So in my opinion, this is all a recipe for disaster that literally you did not cause. You tried to do the right thing by helping them out, and they literally stabbed you in the back. So no, of course you're not the jerk. This is just some petty, jealous, insane behavior, and honestly, you guys do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk screams at my kids after they accidentally bumped the side of his car while playing catch, claiming that they did all this damage to his car with his windshield and a scratch on the car, despite the fact that they literally didn't do any of that. So I decided to maliciously comply when this guy wanted to talk to an officer, as this idiot ended up getting a ticket for being parked in a towaway zone and was then ordered to move his car or else he would get in even more trouble. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this happened July 4th weekend. To start things out, I'm a member and have a place in a self-contained camp community. A nice quiet place with a lake and pools and a restaurant and things like that. I love it because my kid can be a kid like I was and go wander with friends and disappear until dinner time, and I simply don't have to worry. Our place is on a small cul-de-sac that is grassed in, and we use it for kids to play and set up cornhole and all other stuff. Now, because it's July 4th, a bunch of people have guests, so the park is more full than normal, and a guest of someone in the circle parked at the edge of the grass. Well, my kid and another kid were playing catch, and one of the kids missed the ball and it hit the parked car. Well, the owner of the car comes out hot and is going at the kids. So me and the other kid's parents both go over to calm the situation. Obviously, if there's damage, we'll take care of it because it is from our kids. But this guy starts going off about all these dents and this big scratch and a crack in the windshield and all this other stuff as if it's the kid's fault. Now, I was willing to be reasonable, but when you start saying you want a ton of extra work done trying to blame my kid, I get a little less reasonable. So we're going back and forth, and then he says the magic word that if you aren't willing to pay for everything, I'm gonna call the park safety officer to come and deal with it. And so, knowing exactly where this was going, I smiled and said yes, let's go ahead and do that. So the officer comes out, and to no one's surprise but this guy, the area his car is parked at is a no parking area. So not only does the officer tell him to deal with it, because if he had followed the rules and parked in an actual parking zone, this would not have happened. And because the guy told him that he'd parked there for like 2 days with no issues before now, he got a nice fat ticket and was ordered to move his car. This idiot then turned bright red, but didn't say another word and moved his car. And we thankfully didn't hear or see from him for the rest of the weekend. Okay, this is some annoying stuff, man. This guy clearly has a crappy car, so the second he saw kids like accidentally bump into it, he tried to be like, oh yeah, now you're gonna fix all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, they probably like barely bumped your like door panel, and you're trying to be like, oh yeah, they cracked my windshield and they scratched my car. And it's like, no they didn't, dude, you're literally overreacting. And I just love the fact that this guy got a ticket. Like seriously, this is some fantastic karma. He literally wanted to make this into a bigger deal than it needed to be, and honestly, he got exactly what he deserved. So this really was some fantastic malicious compliance because this guy absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk for not covering my neighbor's grocery bill after they repeatedly borrowed my stuff without returning it? Because right now I feel kinda guilty after they called me stingy, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So I live in an apartment building and I have a neighbor who I will call Kayla, who's friendly but a bit careless. Over the past 6 months, Kayla's borrowed several things from me, including tools, a ladder, even my Wi-Fi password when her internet was down. I didn't mind at first, but she's terrible about returning stuff. My screwdriver set is still missing. She kept my ladder for weeks until I asked for it back, and she used my Wi-Fi for a month without offering to chip in for the bill. Each time I've been polite and I let it slide, thinking that she'd get better about it. But last weekend, I run into Kayla at the grocery store, and she was at checkout with a full cart of stuff, but realized that she had forgotten her wallet. She then asked if I could cover her $85 bill, promising to pay me back that evening. Now, I hesitated because of her track record with my stuff, and because I'm on a tight budget myself. I told her I could spot her $20 for essentials, but couldn't cover the whole bill, especially since it included things like expensive snacks and beer. She then got frustrated, saying I was unneighborly, and that she would have done the same for me. She ended up leaving most of her items behind, and only buying what she could with the cash she found in her pocket. Ever since then, Kayla's been giving me the cold shoulder, and another neighbor said that Kayla called me stingy. I feel bad because I know forgetting a wallet is stressful, and maybe I could have helped more since we're neighbors, but I also feel like her pattern of borrowing without reciprocating made me wary. So seriously, am I the jerk for not covering her full grocery bill? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, someone made a good point in the comments because they basically said, okay, since you're stingy, that means you no longer need to loan things to her. And yeah, that is like a really good point. If she wants to sit there and be like, oh wow, you're not very neighborly, then it's like, cool, okay, I'm never giving you anything ever again. Like, talk about biting the hand that's feeding you. Like, how stupid can you get? So no, you're definitely not the jerk because Kayla sounds like a complete moron. Am I the jerk for preventing my pregnant sister access to my food? Because after I set up a mini fridge to prevent her from eating everything I've made, she's saying that I'm being stingy and my family is slowly turning on me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my sister is staying with me temporarily after leaving her husband. Now, I have a small apartment, but I let her move in because she had nowhere else to go. And on top of that, she's 6 months pregnant. I wasn't very pleased about this situation, but she is my sister after all, so I helped out. But the main issue here has been food. Now, I am pretty disciplined about what I eat because I am in a bulk stage and I'm hitting the gym regularly. I portion things, I label them, and I plan for the entire week. But every other day, something's gone and it's making me go crazy. She'll drink all my expensive shakes, polish off meals I've prepped for work, eat snacks I've saved for post-run, and even finish leftovers I was planning to turn into new meals. When I bring it up, she shrugs and says things like, oh, cravings hit hard, my hormones are acting up, and you're just being mean. I then asked her to replace things that she finishes, or at least ask before taking something. Or maybe, oh, I don't know, manage your own food for God's sake. But she refuses to do anything about it. So last week I ordered a small mini fridge and I set it up in my bedroom, and it's just big enough for my meal prep, my snacks, and my drinks. I didn't make a scene about it, and I just quietly started putting all my stuff there. Well, she noticed 2 days later and got super pissed off. She said I was being childish, dramatic, and treating her like a thief. But I calmly told her I was tired of my groceries disappearing and that this was the easiest way to avoid fights. Well, she's now been sulking and has told our parents after her failed marriage that her brother is also alienating her, and she is just a burden for everyone. My mom then called and said that I should understand that pregnancy isn't easy, and especially for her situation. And you know what? I don't think I'm being cruel. I'm still letting her live here rent-free, and I've even offered to order food or cook together, but I just want my food to be left alone. A part of me understands she is going through a lot of trouble, but honestly, it's at my expense. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm very frustrated. Okay, I want to first start off by saying that the original poster answered a question I had in my mind that other people have asked about in the comment section. Where on earth is she gonna go once the baby is born? And apparently the original poster said they're sending her to the parents. And seriously, this is like the best decision they could have made. The way his sister is acting is super obnoxious and it is completely unfair. And obviously you're not being ignorant to your sister's situation, but also the fact that she's eating all your food is completely unacceptable. Like seriously, this isn't fair for you and you don't deserve to have like no food to eat. So no, you're not the jerk for setting up a mini fridge because honestly, I would do the exact same thing. An entitled Karen pours my beer all over me after I accidentally bumped into her, spilling just a little bit on her. So I decided to get some petty revenge by pouring the entire can of beer I had in my hands all over her head. Here's how I did it. I'm a 28-year-old male and I was at a music festival that I'd been looking forward to for months with 2 of my friends. There's no assigned seating at the outdoor venue and there are a few hundred people. While the opener was on, I went to get 3 drinks for me and my friends. And I had a beer can in one hand and 2 open plastic cups in the other. On my way back to try and find my friends, the main artist was starting. The cheering and music was amazing, the energy was exactly what I'd been looking forward to, and the crowd was all trying to get closer to the stage. Well, then I was bumped by somebody and I spilled some of my beer on myself and another girl. Well, she was not happy and tried to say something to me, but I simply couldn't hear her over the noise. I apologized the best I could, knowing she likely couldn't hear me, and tried to continue through the crowd. When I turned away, she grabbed my hand and wrestled 2 of the drinks away from me, only to throw them on the floor, spilling more on the both of us and everyone around us. I couldn't believe what was happening, and I looked back at her trying to understand why. When I saw her and the grin on her face, I knew exactly why. So you know what? I took my 3rd drink, the full can of beer, and I poured it right on her head. I then immediately turned around to head back to the bar and get more drinks. I then heard people yelling behind me asking, "Hey, what was that all about?" But I realized as I went to defend myself what I had really just done, and how nobody around us would have saw the first part of the interaction. So you know what? I just kept on walking and I didn't look back because honestly, there's nothing that would have made this situation any better. Oh man, good for you for getting back at that person because what they did was so malicious. They smashed your drinks for no reason. Like, dude, it's an accident. There's people all over the place. It's not like you did it on purpose. So yeah, in my opinion, I think you were well within your rights to put your revenge on this lady because the way she acted was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for deciding not to attend my sister's wedding after I found out she has been excluding me on purpose from pre-wedding events? Because right now this is somehow being blamed on me and honestly I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I've had a strained relationship with 2 of my sisters and their partners for years, and this has always felt one-sided. I was the one initiating, planning, hosting, and even paying just to keep the relationship going. They rarely reciprocated and often ignored boundaries or just acted entitled. For the upcoming wedding of one of my sisters, she made it clear she didn't want me as a bridesmaid, which is completely fine. But then she gave me a long list of things she wanted me to do for her, like I was part of the wedding party in some kind of way. And that felt pretty unfair, especially considering our history. The final straw came when I learned I was deliberately excluded from a major pre-wedding event. People I've had serious issues with were invited and kept secret from me, and I only found out through a third party. It felt really disrespectful, so I decided not to attend the pre-wedding event even after I paid, or the wedding at all. Ever since then, I've gone low to no contact with them, and honestly, I'm now being painted as the villain to the extended family and any mutual friends. I'm also being accused of burning bridges and replacing them with other people in my life. Now, I've stayed silent about all this, but part of me still wonders if I'm in the wrong. So seriously, am I at fault here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, if someone's deliberately excluding me like this, where there's like major pre-wedding events and they're like, okay, let's involve everybody except this person, then honestly, that's like the final straw for me. Never mind the fact that they wanted you to be a bridesmaid without actually being one, or just, I don't know, treating you like garbage in general. Like this for me would have been the one thing I just could not stand behind because it would feel so disrespectful. And it's so ironic that they're trying to be like, oh yeah, you're burning bridges and you're replacing us. But it's like, okay, well, what choice do I have? If I'm really burning bridges by pulling back and going no contact, then guess what? It probably wasn't a very good bridge to begin with. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. You definitely definitely didn't do anything wrong from the sounds of it, and it really seems like your family is just super toxic. My entitled friend tried to guilt trip me into lending her money, all because I bought an expensive camera, to which she said if I can afford that, then I can afford to lend her some money. And I'm honestly so heartbroken because I thought this really was my friend, but clearly that's not the case. Here's how it happened. Okay, so this happened recently, and I honestly still can't believe the nerve. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I recently made what I would call a big girl purchase. I bought this popular camera because I'm trying to take my career as a videographer really seriously. I've been working towards this for months, and it's not something I consider cheap. I was super excited, and I told my friend about it, and she seemed really happy for me. Well, the next day she hits me up and says that she's short on money and wants to borrow some from me. Now, I didn't even ask her what it was for, but instead I just told her I didn't really have the full amount that she was asking for, but I could help her with maybe half of it. Well, she then says that if I could afford to buy a camera like that, which by the way, yes, it was expensive, then apparently it won't hurt to lend her the full amount. I mean, it's not like she won't pay me back. Well, I didn't respond for a while, but I ended up telling her that I wasn't going to give her anything at all. Well, I haven't heard from her since, and I honestly thought that was incredibly wild, because I really thought this was my friend, but there were clearly some strings attached, and that honestly is incredibly frustrating. Oh man, this is one of those friends that literally only comes to you when they need something, and not one that's actually gonna, like, I don't know, celebrate your victories. Because if my friend, who is a videographer, bought a camera like that, you know, a professional one that's expensive and like really matters, I would be super stoked for that. I would be so happy for them and be like, oh my gosh, congratulations. I would be cheering them on and be like, okay, this is awesome. But this friend literally took the opposite approach. They seriously tried to guilt trip you and be like, oh, if you can buy that camera, then you can easily lend me some money. So yeah, that's clearly not a good friend and not someone you would ever want to associate with. My management and coworkers are constantly mistreating me and the rest of the bartenders I work with, as they treat us like trash and say to us that if we don't like the way we're being treated, then we can complain to our union representative. So we decided to maliciously comply and do exactly that, as we went to our union rep and nailed out exactly what our job responsibilities are, forcing my managers and my coworkers to adhere to this in a way that I'm sure they are not going to forget anytime soon. And I'm honestly feeling so good about this because I feel like my job just got significantly easier. Here's how it went down. To start things out, we're technically government employees. And don't ask me why, but we're also union. Yeah, I am literally a bartender in a restaurant where everyone is a unionized government employee. So I'm sure you can probably see where this is going or what kind of environment this has engendered. So first off, the employees. There are 3 full-time bartenders. As a person who has bartended or managed bars off and on for decades, we actually got hosed. Like, I have never made so little money working in the service industry in my life. But we have a pension and benefits, so that's pretty cool. We consistently work our butts off while we watch our floor counting their hundreds of dollars at the end of their shift, while we make only what happens directly at our bar. The servers are mandated to tip out 2% of drink sales only, but regularly they ignorantly throw dimes across the table at us and make comments about, oh, it was only 50 cents, but I rounded up to $1 because you earned it. Yes, comments like this happen on the regular. Basically, the union bartenders are not allowed to serve tables, and the servers consistently remind us of that. Now, here's where it gets really bad. They expect the bartenders to also run their food, clean and clear their tables, and still only tip to the literal penny. And this is just one aspect of many problems going on. Now, when it comes to management, we've had numerous conversations with them as our servers consistently abandon their tables. They go outside to smoke, they hang out on their phones, and they consistently do the barest of minimums. But because they're not on the floor, we have to be. We are mandated and guaranteed 15-minute breaks twice a shift, and one 30-minute break that we never get. And this is without even mentioning once that management refuses to hire any new bartenders, all due to their budget constraints. We've spoken to management numerous times, and all we get told is that servers have the floor, and that we can file a grievance with the union. And this is where our malicious compliance and revenge comes into play. So myself and the other 2 bartenders sat down with our union representatives, and we hammered out the exact parameters of our jobs, as well as management duties and obligations of our floor. We got everything highlighted, and we now have laminated cardstock behind the bar with the printed and highlighted aspects of our jobs, our job parameters, and our job guarantees. Well, a few weeks ago, we started every shift the same way. Servers would regularly just walk behind the bar to get drinks for themselves or for their clients. But you know what? Sorry, you're not a bartender, so you can't come behind the bar. They would try to protest and be like, what? What are you talking about? But we would say, sorry, we can't take tables and you can't serve drinks. We'll get into it as soon as we can. So now the servers have to wait on us to pour their drinks. And I'm talking whether it's pop, water, beer, or even if they get some ice. And honestly, that's just step 1. We now also take our 15 minutes and 30-minute breaks accordingly. As such, any and all drink service just completely stops. And here's the best part. Our management otherwise is completely useless. If they're chatting with their friends or hiding in the offices, they now have no choice but to come down and man the bar while we do so. They have to make drinks, stock the bar, which we always ensure is needing to be done by the way, and they put away and polish our glassware. And this is important as we have very specific criteria for our house drinks and what type of vessels they get poured in. And my god, this has been so amusing to watch. But we enjoy our breaks and I'm now catching up on some reading for the first time in a while. It's only been a few weeks, but the servers seem to be getting it, and all of a sudden there are 2 new bartenders in training on the schedule and 2 more apparently being hired. So maybe this malicious compliance stuff does work, because my job just got a lot easier. Okay, this is one of the few times where I'm like, yes, unions are amazing, because having a job like this honestly can be so frustrating. You have people talking down to you and you're like literally not making any money, and they have the audacity to go around and be like, oh wow, look at you. Here's your $1 tip, sorry about that. It was only 50 cents but I rounded up. And then they walk behind your bar and just disrespect you, or they just don't help out. Like my god, this is no way to treat your coworkers. Not to mention coworkers who are in a union, dude. So good for you for putting your foot down and being like, no, we're not gonna be treated this way. Because honestly, I think having a union in this situation really did save your skin. Otherwise, I'm sure your coworkers would continue to take advantage of you.
A Karen demands that the coffee I served her be hotter. I make it hotter and I give it to her. She says she wants it hotter. I make it even hotter and I give it to her. She says it's still not hot enough, but if I make it any hotter, it'll start curdling and there won't even be any milk left. So I give her a healthy dose of malicious compliance. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened a few years ago when I was first starting in hospitality, but this was the best intro I ever got to what hospitality is really like. It was the afternoon and my boss was already in a cranky mood because he was teaching a 17-year-old how to use the coffee machine, which would drive anyone mad. A woman came in and ordered a dine-in coffee extra hot. He let me do the coffee while he went out back, and I made the milk 75 degrees Celsius. For those who don't know, milk is steamed to around 65 degrees Celsius, 149 degrees Fahrenheit, so this should have been fine. She came back and said,
I asked for extra hot and this is lukewarm at best.
I'm brand new at this, so my boss assumes I made a mistake. I remake the coffee, showing him it's now at 80 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit. He tried a bit by pouring the milk into a separate container first, burnt his mouth, and confirmed the thermometer was fine. I took it out to her, said sorry, and came back in to a life lesson from my boss saying that customers can sometimes tell when someone is new, so they prey on them. Again, the woman comes back and says,
I come here all the time and I have never been so disappointed.
Or something to that effect, and storms back to her table. My boss and I are really confused at this point. He remakes it again. She brings it back again and begins to yell at me full Karen style. My boss has gone to the toilet at this point. I'm 17, brand new to customer facing jobs, and trembling and crying. Finally, my boss walks up, yanks the cup from her hand, puts it under the steam wand, and turns it on. Milk is boiling over the cup, all over the counter and onto the floor. He just stares at her. He hands it back to her without ever breaking eye contact. Milk curdled, half a cup of liquid missing, and says, there, it's hot. I made sure of it. She was mortified. I was horrified. She sat at her table too stunned to complain and drank the coffee in peace. He went into the kitchen to tell the chef, and they cracked up laughing. That boss was the best and worst boss I've ever had. One time, we were overbooked and had to cancel the most recent reservation. They called him the C word, so he set up their tablecloth and utensils on the ground outside the restaurant and sent them a picture confirming their booking. So, what should I have done? This drink probably was as hot as the lady wanted it to be, but something about the presentation or her perception of it probably made it seem like it wasn't. One of the top comments said I had an experience like this with a customer who sent back her coffee twice saying she wanted it hotter. I explained to her in no uncertain terms that the milk would burn, and she just pushed the coffee toward me and told me to fix it. When I got back to the machine, my manager took the cup from me without a word, put the handle of the cup under a jet of boiling water for a few seconds, dried it, and took it back to her. The exact same cup of coffee with a hot handle. She said it was finally the perfect temperature and thanked him profusely for making it right. That illustrates that point perfectly because the coffee itself did not change temperature, it's just the handle that was hotter. In fact, the coffee probably was less hot by that time because it had cooled off a little bit in the time when he was doing this. This situation is also kind of like that famous McDonald's lawsuit where they served a lady coffee that was too hot, she spilled it on herself, she got burned, and then she tried to sue them for a relatively small amount of money, but in the end, the jury ended up awarding her $200,000 in compensatory damages and $2.7 million in punitive damages. But later, both parties appealed and the lawsuit was settled. So if you were working here and this was your customer, let me know how you would handle the situation down below. A disgruntled customer at our bank has a $30 interest charge. He tries to bully us into closing his account so we can waive the interest fee, but this time we maliciously comply and actually close his accounts, charging him a $2,000 early exit fee. The customer goes ballistic. Here's what happened. This malicious compliance comes from my time working at a bank in their contact center. I literally have hundreds of stories about that place and its customers, but today I'd like to share a story that has always brought a smile to many a suffering customer service coworker's face about the time we got one back for the good guys. Here's the backstory. I was employed as a customer service officer. I'd been with the bank for about 18 months, mostly working afternoon shifts, but recently the bank had moved to a 24-hour customer service model. So while most of the bank would be closed, head office, complaints, credit, etc., we were still open. Let me set the scene. 10 p.m., midweek, fluorescent lights flicker overhead, the call board empty, and I'm literally counting the seconds left in my shift, ready to go home. A phone call pops onto my screen. I think, crap, I always get a call just before I finish. Mustering my best customer voice, I say, "Hi, thanks for calling bank. You're speaking with OP. How can I help you today?" I hear nothing but dead air, so I start to repeat myself. "Hi, you're speaking with..." When I hear the tone of voice and words every contact center worker has heard at some point, it just lets you know you're in for a great call. Not. The customer loudly sighs and says, "Yes, I'm here. God, what takes you people so long to answer? What are you doing?" As noted before, there were no calls on the board. This customer didn't wait in a queue. He would have dialed, gone through to the IVR to enter his customer number and PIN before being put through to me. A max of 60 seconds. Me, not trying to provoke any further and get this customer off the phone as quickly as I can so I can go home, I say, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. Our system doesn't show a queue, but I'm sorry that you had to wait. What can I do for you this evening?" The customer seems to settle down and starts explaining that the reason for the call was the interest charges on the most recent credit card bill. The customer was sure they were a mistake because "I always pay my bills on time," and "I don't like paying you bloodsuckers any more than I have to." Charming, I know. So I placed the customer on hold to look at his account. I started looking at the payment history, when payments were due and received, what balances were there, etc. Then I quickly looked at the customer's interaction notes. This is where the bank records any contact with the customer as well as any fee waivers, special interest rates, etc. And I see an interesting series of notes from colleagues of mine stating things like customer advised interest was charged due to full payment not received by due date. Customer threatened to close all accounts with the bank. Manager approved interest waiver. Notes like this went on for months until there was a note from our retention department stating if customer threatens to close accounts to seek waiver of fees, interest, or other charges, please process immediately. No retention authorized. I was a bit shocked because usually the bank would do a lot to keep an existing customer. Like they told us in training, it's cheaper to keep a customer than to gain a new one. So I call over my manager to read the notes and give him a heads up as I've got a feeling that the customer is going to be demanding another interest waiver. My cool manager says, "Well, if he does, do what the note says." Total hold time, maybe 2 minutes. I take the customer off of hold and thank him for waiting. "Well, it's about time. My time is very valuable, you know. So have you fixed it yet?" I start explaining that the interest charges are valid because he didn't pay off his balance before the due date. The customer goes ballistic. He starts calling me every conceivable name under the sun and mid-sentence stops. He plays it like he just had an idea. "Well, fine. If the interest charges are valid, I'm gonna close my accounts. I want to close my accounts with you now." At this point, I'm excited about putting the customer in his place, but I also want to cover my butt, so I ask, "So just to be certain, you are instructing me to close all of your accounts with us, including your credit card, savings account, and transactional accounts?" "Are you stupid? That's what I said." Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Then, while grinning my face off, I say, "Okay, no problems. I'll just place you on a hold to do that for you." I hit the hold button just as fast as I heard the customer say, "No." With my manager's help, we closed his accounts. His savings account was a term deposit, so by breaking the term early, he had to pay an early access fee of 10% of the balance. We used the money in his transactional account to cover the outstanding balance on his credit card, including the interest, and sent a request for a check to be issued for the remaining money. I took the customer off of hold. Again, thank you for your patience. As requested, your accounts are now closed. Was there anything else I can help you with tonight? If I thought the customer went ballistic before, oh boy. There was talk of suing the bank, suing me, suing my manager, suing the head of retention, that we were guilty of discrimination, that I didn't have the authority to do what I did. He's gonna call the police, we're thieves, some other ways of telling me how useless I am and how I can end myself. You get the picture. Me still smiling because I know I nor anyone else in my bank will have to deal with this jerk again. Say, "Sir, ma'am, I understand that you are upset. However, on a recorded phone call, you instructed me to close your accounts. I have complied with your wishes. As there is nothing else for us to speak about tonight, thank you for calling bank. Have a good night," and hung up on him before he could say another word. My manager created an incident report and sent it to the head of retention with an attached copy of the call recording. I later found out retention sent the customer a letter telling him he was banned from our bank for life due to the quote vile and disgusting way he had spoken to me. We would never do business with him again, and if he called or visited a branch, we would be the ones calling the police. Do you want to know what the total interest charges were that started all of this? $30. His term deposit had $20,000 in it. He cost himself $2,000 in early exit fees because he thought that he could bully his way out of a $30 interest charge. So, am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for not giving 24 hours notice to my daughter's roommates before dropping something off? I am a mother to a 20-year-old daughter. She is a junior in college and attends school in the same city that we live in. My daughter and two of her friends live in a condominium that I own. Her friends pay below market rent, while my daughter does not. The condo was inherited from my parents, and it was their intent that I would pass ownership of it to my daughter when she is mature enough to own her own place. My daughter, husband, and I are in agreement that she will take over ownership of the condo when she is out of school and financially independent. Earlier this week, my daughter mentioned that she had run out of some household supplies and would have to set time aside to go shopping before the end of the week. My daughter's schedule has been especially rough lately, as she has picked up extra shifts at her part-time job due to short staffing. Wanting to be helpful, I offered to pick up the supplies for her and drop them off at her place. She accepted. The next day, I picked up the supplies and took them to the condo. I knew my daughter was in class, so I knocked, and when no one answered, I let myself in. The front door opens into the living room. When I entered, I found one of my daughter's roommates being intimate with a man on the living room couch. I was obviously mortified, so I left the supplies at the door and left right away. I didn't say anything to my daughter about what happened because I didn't want to put her in an uncomfortable position, but I did let her know that I had dropped off the supplies. On Friday, I got an angry email from the roommate's parents. I'm not sure exactly what they were told, but their email lambasted me for invading their daughter's privacy. They said what I did was wrong because I'm their daughter's landlord and I entered the condo without giving 24 hours notice. They're threatening to take legal action if I do it again. I am vaguely familiar with this requirement, but didn't think it was applicable here. Was I the jerk in this situation? I feel bad about what happened, but I also don't feel like I was out of line. My daughter was aware that I was coming to drop off the supplies and asked that I leave them in the kitchen, which is adjacent to the living room. I am not asking for judgment on whether I violated the law. I checked in with a friend who is a lawyer, and he thinks that because my daughter gave me explicit permission to enter the home and drop off the supplies, I'm in the clear. I am asking whether I was the jerk for doing so. Before you decide, there is an update to the situation. I called and texted my daughter asking to discuss the situation. She can't speak to me right now because her roommates are fighting and she's meditating, but she is aware of the situation and sent me a quick explanation. My daughter had notified all the roommates that I was coming over, but roommate 1 apparently forgot. The man she was with was roommate 2's boyfriend. She freaked out and contacted her parents because she was scared I would spill the beans. I still don't know exactly what she told her parents, but I assume it wasn't the full story. I have never met roommate 2's boyfriend, so I didn't know it was him. Roommate 1 and roommate 2 are now fighting, and needless to say, roommate 1 will be moving out. I will be writing a more comprehensive formal lease for roommate 2 for both my protection and hers, but in all honesty, roommate 2 is wonderful and I do not anticipate that there will be any problems. So am I the jerk for not giving a 24-hour notice to my daughter's roommate before dropping something off? So the daughter gave explicit permission and the roommates knew she was coming. The issue wasn't that they were caught off guard, the issue was that roommate 1 forgot, and her forgetting doesn't suddenly make you the jerk. The top response to this whole thing says, when you live with roommates, typically things in common areas like couches, kitchen equipment, etc. are for use by everyone. Roommate 2 made the mistake of leaving her boyfriend in the living room. So anyway, even if roommate 1 was doing something sneaky like this, she was the one who forgot the mom was coming over. She could have done this whole thing in her room, but instead she freaked out and started started calling her parents. But one last thing that's not really a core part of the story, it's just the fact that the daughter in this situation is going to inherit a condo, and she's going to do it as soon as she's financially independent. That would be insanely life-changing for most people on this earth. Just being able to focus from constantly having to survive and paying for where you're going to survive and how you're going to survive to moving beyond that, not having to be in survival mode because you literally own a condo that your parents gave you. I know it's not the point of this story, but it's just kind of mind-blowing that these type of situations exist. So going back to the original question, what would you do in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for expecting a nanny to dress appropriately? I'm a 43-year-old female and I'm currently searching for a nanny for my children. My son is 5 and my daughter is 11. We found one young lady yesterday that seemed like a great fit. We interviewed her in our home and explained our careers. I'm a lawyer and my husband is a trainer, and I explained everything to her. She seemed happy with everything and was kind to us, and there was no issues there. The problem came when I spoke to her about the dress code I expected. I noticed she had on leggings with a sweater today, which I guess was okay because she wasn't working, but I would have expected a little more for an interview. However, I told her that I expect she will not be wearing athletic wear while she tends to children, i.e. no leggings, yoga pants, sweats, etc. She kind of laughed and said, "So what do you want me to wear?" And my husband laughed, but I was serious. I told her that that type of clothing is inappropriate since she's not working out, she's working. She seemed put off and said that's what she normally wears, and if she's going to be active with the kids, she needs to be dressed comfortably. I told her what the expectations were, and she said she understands and left. Later on, she told me that she doesn't think this will work out. Was I wrong for setting expectations? I don't think it's okay to walk around in tight clothing with my son and husband present. Plus, she should be dressed like she's working. She's a professional. A teacher would not dress that way. My husband said I was overreacting. So, am I the jerk? But before you decide, there's an update from the nanny's perspective. So if you saw yesterday, there was a post circulating about someone saying leggings and yoga pants are inappropriate to wear for nanny work. She was actually talking about me. So it was cool to see so many people confirm that yeah, I was right to not take the job. I do currently have a position and was only looking for something just because I thought my family wouldn't need me anymore. They worked things out, so if anyone was wondering, yes, I'm employed and I'm fine. The interview was super bizarre. First of all, my leggings and sweater were cute, and I paired it with some cute boots, so I don't know why she was coming for me. She was super weird about me directing any conversation towards her husband and vice versa. I asked what he did for work and she cut me off to answer for him. We started talking about sports because he was a coach at the college I cheered for, and she got mad. Her daughter seemed super quiet and nice, and her son was wild AF. It was the weirdest energy ever. I did laugh when she made the comment about clothes because I genuinely thought she was joking. Her husband even said to her that she was out of line, and I just left because it was getting awkward. She was super misogynistic and weird. Like, her husband wasn't even misogynistic from the vibe I got. Anyway, funny experience, and she posted in a mom group in my area. Weirdo woman, lol. So, who's in the right and who's in the wrong? On one hand, I guess it's a good thing that she clearly laid out exactly what she was looking for, so she didn't waste anyone else's time any further in this interview. But on the other hand, her reasoning was, I don't think it's okay to walk around in tight clothing with my son and husband present. So first of all, her son is 5 years old, and secondly, her husband is a trainer, which I assume to mean is a physical trainer, like he gets people in shape at a gym. So in other words, he's probably surrounded by people that are in workout clothes, athletic clothes, yoga pants all day long. I get wanting to have a separation between work and home, but it's something that he's probably constantly bombarded with anyway. Either way, she's the one hiring, she laid out her expectations, and ultimately that is a more fair thing to do, to give someone the choice if they want to take the job or not, rather than mislead them and then spring this on them later. But let me know how you see the situation down below. Jerk or not a jerk, and why? This is the story of the summer that changed my life forever. I grew up in a household with a narc dad and a borderline mom who often left us for long periods of time to do God knows what. When I was 12, I learned that I had a half-sister who was 17 and living in another town a few hours away. She had problems in her house too, although mainly economical problems, not actual neglect caused by ill will. We wrote letters to each other, and in one letter I shared with her my fear of the long summer holiday. Being stuck in the house without even school to escape to was hell. She made a promise to come and save me if it got too bad. Just let me know and I'll find a way to help, she wrote. A few days after I had posted my letter where I told her how my mother had stopped providing meals and my dad emotionally hurt me, she showed up on our doorstep. She told my dad that I was going to spend the summer holiday with her family, and since my dad hated kids, myself included, he happily agreed, no questions asked. We took the night train north. I was so excited. She didn't take me home with her, she took me camping. We spent the entire summer hiking amazingly beautiful trails, usually tenting, but sometimes renting a small cabin for the night. It was the happiest summer of my life. I suddenly had a sister who cared and enjoyed spending time with me. She could fish and trap birds and cook, and showed me how how to read maps and the names of the constellations in the sky. When the summer ended, I was transformed. I wasn't shy or confidence deprived anymore. I was a strong and resilient kid with an entirely new outlook on things. I reported my parents for lacking parenting skills, and I was placed with a foster family. Neither of them made a fuss to keep me, so it was easily done. I often think about that summer that changed my life so profoundly. I don't know if it was that I gained a sister or that she showed me I can survive and thrive, even on the roughest, unmarked trails. It wasn't until years later that I learned the real story behind that summer. At the time when she made me that promise, my sister lived with her family in a tiny apartment with no place for yet another person or another mouth to feed. In fact, she had been told to get out herself as soon as possible to make room for her siblings, and she was now awaiting the day when she could move into her student apartment. I was amazed to hear that not only was our wonderful summer an emergency solution, her way to keep her promise and also give me an unforgettable summer, but she did it so well that I never once realized that we were there because we had nowhere else to go. Today, I turned 30. My sister is still my best friend, and this summer we plan to hit the trails again. The ending to this was surprisingly wholesome. I wonder if the older sister really knew how big of an impact she made on the OP. She obviously knew that the OP was in a tough situation, and she was in one herself, but she might not have known how completely transformative it was for her little sister. Even in my own life, I think there are certain situations that I was in with other people that may not know how profound they were to me, how much they transformed me, even if it doesn't obviously seem that way to them. If you've watched the video with some of my own personal stories, you probably know what I'm talking about, but if not, remind me to put a link to that down below. So let me know down below if you've ever had an experience like this yourself. My stepson hated me so much for being with his father. He sabotaged our wedding by grabbing the mic and telling everyone how vile of a person I was, killed my cat, and then stabbed me. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 39-year-old female and I'm married to my husband Dave, who's 44, and he has a son named Avery, who's 19. His ex-wife is named Diana, who's 42. Avery has always been hostile towards me and blamed me for his parents' divorce despite his dad not meeting me until 3 years after. I have tried my best to spend time with Avery, and I've been respectful of all the boundaries he set with me. Avery still hates me. It was fine with me as long as he didn't treat me like crap because he hates me. Well, Avery started treating me like crap when he found out his dad was marrying me. He threw a fit saying his dad needed his permission before marrying me and that he wouldn't come to the wedding. His dad and I let it slide and sat down with Avery and Diana to try and figure out why he was upset. It didn't work, and Avery refused to see us until the wedding. At Dave and I's wedding, Avery objected to us being married in front of everyone and asked to make a speech in front of everyone later in the night. In his speech, he told everyone what a horrible person I was and that I was responsible for his parents' divorce and that I was a dirty homewrecker. Dave drove Avery back to Diana's, but the damage was done, and several wedding guests assume Avery was telling the truth. My wedding night was ruined because of this, and a good part of my family refuses to speak to me despite me explaining to them that this was not the case. Avery has continued to treat me like crap since then. He got mad at me once, so he dropped my cat off at a shelter 2 towns over and refused to tell me where he was until he'd been put down. I wanted to keep my wedding dress after the wedding, and he tore it to shreds. Just 2 examples, I'll give more if anyone wants them. Finally, Wednesday, Dave and I had Avery over for dinner because Avery actually wanted to come. Long story short, when I went to get dessert and Dave wasn't there, Avery confronted me in the kitchen and began screaming at me and told me that I was a horrible person, as well as some other not so nice things. Dave eventually came in, Avery left, and I got pissed. I told Dave that I was tired of having his son constantly attack me and treating me like crap because of something he knows didn't happen. And I've put up with his nonsense for the last 6 years. I told him that he had to make a choice between me and Avery because I wasn't going to put up with Avery's nonsense any longer. And if it was a requirement of being married to Dave, I'd be filing for divorce. Dave told me it wasn't fair to make him make this decision, and I told him it might not have been fair, but it wasn't fair of him to let his son harass and attack me for years. So am I the jerk for making my husband choose between me and his son? But before you decide, there's a few updates. I've told Dave that I don't want to be around Avery several times and I got ignored. I was told that we go to therapy to try and sort things out, but it never happened. I don't know why Avery blames me for the divorce. divorce? If your question is about that, I can't answer you. Jumping into the future again, there is another update. How do I divorce my husband? I'm a 39-year-old female and I want to file for divorce from my husband who's 44, who has kept me in an abusive situation for the last 6 years. My husband has never put his hands on me, but has allowed his 19-year-old son to abuse me for the entire time we've been together. His son started out with screaming at me constantly whenever I was around him, and then it went to destroying my things as well as my cat. Eventually, it got to where he began threatening to harm me and actually harming me. To make a long story short, my husband's son stabbed me about 2 weeks ago, and after getting out of the hospital, I ran. I know I'm not safe with my husband anymore. I've been too much of a pushover to his son, and my husband refuses to protect me. It's going to end up with his son killing me, so I'm doing what I can to protect myself. I'm working on getting a restraining order against his son, and I need to know how to divorce my husband. I've never been divorced. I never wanted to be divorced, and I have no clue how to even start filing for divorce. So my question is, how do I divorce my husband? More than a month later, there was an update. To start, about 2 weeks after my post, Avery stabbed me. Dave allowed him over to spend time with him, and I was making myself lunch. To make a long story short, Avery grabbed a knife from the knife block, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. I filed a police report, but there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest, and Dave was furious with me. As soon as I was released, I ran. I'm currently staying with my sister, and I am safe. Thank you to everyone who asked. I filed for divorce, and I'm working on getting a restraining order. I'm also going to work on getting myself into therapy once the world isn't so crazy, though that may take a while. I definitely need it. To those that told me I made up the post for karma, thank you. It was totally obviously made up for karma /S. Also, to those who were calling me just as bad for not leaving right away, I know, now at least, I'm a huge pushover and way too much of an optimist for my own good. I'll answer some questions from various places, specifically the post. I would have answered them there, but the post was locked because people can't be civil. What age was Avery when you, Dave, and I got married? He was 17. I met Dave and Avery when he was 13. I dated Dave for 4 years and have been married to Dave for 2 years. How did Avery just drop my cat off at a shelter? The shelters around where I live are high kill. My guess is that he dropped my cat off and claimed he was a stray. Then he waited a month and told me that he was the one who got rid of my cat. What aren't you telling? You left out a lot of the story. You won't tell anyone what you've done. That is probably just as bad, etc. Here's what I left out. When I met Avery, I was very upfront with him. I told him I wasn't his mom and I wouldn't act like his mom. Then he started becoming hostile and openly hateful of me. At first, it was just him screaming and throwing tantrums and stealing little things, like things from my small snack stash, little trinkets of mine, small gifts his dad sometimes got me, etc. Then it went to him destroying things, like taking photos off the wall and throwing them against the ground as hard as he could, sticking things into the garbage disposal, dumping makeup into the toilet, and eventually stabbing the couch with a pair of scissors. Eventually, it turned to full-on threats. I lost my temper with him every so often and would call Diana in front of him to tell her about what he was doing. The most parenting I would do was send him to his room if he was destroying something. When he dropped off my cat at the shelter, I screamed at him and cried. I told him he was a horrible person. After he messed up my wedding, the next time I saw him, I asked him what the heck he was doing and got in a screaming match with him. So to sum up the answer to that question, not much. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually been mean to him, as in sending him to his room or getting in a screaming match with him. It was left out because of the character limit on the original post. Why did Dave and Diana divorce, Avery's mom? When Diana came over to visit me in the hospital, I asked her this, and this was her answer. Dave wouldn't be a parent to Avery, as in he wanted to be more of Avery's friend than a parent, and he was never home. Dave works from around 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening and passes out pretty quickly after he gets home. Why didn't I leave after my cat was put down? No clue. I should have left. How did Avery get the mic to make a toast after objecting? Dave thought his precious angel was just having a hard time and would shape up. I'll answer any other questions if you have them. I've been asked to update, so here's the update. Jumping nearly a year into the future, there is another update. I've officially been divorced for 3 months and I just got my restraining order against the crazy kid, who is currently waiting for a court date because he broke into his mother's house. Avery tried getting into Diana's gun safe and got caught on camera doing it. I am far away from it all and I'm glad at this point. A few months in the future, there is one final update. I'll be honest and say that I completely forgot about this account. I came back to 30-something notifications, so I figured someone might still be interested in how things ended up turning out. Dave apparently ended up dating someone else after our divorce was finalized. I found out who it was via Facebook. He stayed with this woman for about 2 months and then they broke up. I actually happen to know the reason why, because she made a post on her own account. Avery showed up at her house threatening to kill her while he was sloshed. This happened at around the same time he got caught trying to steal Diana's gun from her safe, so I'm just gonna put 2 and 2 together and say that I think I know why he went for the gun. Avery ended up being arrested for it, though I don't think he was charged with anything. If he was, I don't think he had to serve any time. This happened about a year ago, and about 3 months ago I got a call from Diana. We didn't talk much after I left because I believe she figured it would be easier for me not to have to hear about any of that anymore. It turns out Avery died. They called his death self-inflicted, though they're not exactly sure if that's the case. It happened at a party, and that's what everyone else said apparently. Somehow he ended up with some handgun, and they think that he did it to himself. I'm not sure I totally believe that, but I don't want to think about it too much. It's definitely plausible. Avery spiraled pretty badly after I ran, if you can call it that. I feel somewhat sorry for Dave, but I mostly feel sorry for Diana. Their kid was an awful human being, but they didn't deserve to go through the pain of losing him. No matter how I felt about him and the awful things he did to me, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy that he died. I mean, I'm relieved if that makes sense, but I'm not happy about it. It feels like it would be wrong to be happy about it. I did end up getting myself into therapy after I got settled. I've been looking back at some of the things I wrote when it was all initially going on, and honestly, I'm kind of alarmed with how little I reacted to the things that were happening. I feel like I was just exhausted at the time. I brought it up to my therapist and she told me it was probably just my way of trying not to break down with everything happening around me. But I'm in a much better place now. I'm looking into getting myself a new cat, and I've opened myself up to the idea of dating again. So going back to the original question, am I the jerk for making my husband choose between me and his son? I can't believe how much the original poster had to go through here. This was heartbreaking. I also can't believe how many people don't see it from her perspective. They try and make it seem like she was the villain in this situation and not the victim of this situation. She even sort of described herself as an optimist to a fault. Originally, she was trying to make this whole situation work, and it just got way out of hand. She seems kind of hard on herself when she describes herself as a pushover, but it sounds like her ex-husband is the pushover that really enabled all of this. The fact that he didn't put a stop to what his son was doing because he wanted to be his friend instead of being his parent is really what seems to have allowed this situation to exist in the first place. I mean, the ex-husband just thought that Avery would suddenly play nice at the wedding and let him give this speech. Why would you ever risk that, knowing the whole history of the situation and knowing what would happen if it went wrong, to ruin that entire day for your wife? And that was his call to make because it's his son. But it sounds like he failed to act in almost every situation. Despite all of that, it's a shame that Avery passed away, but what kind of adult still cares that much about who their parents date? It's not like he's forced to live with them. He's a full-grown adult at that point. I just hope the original poster is able to heal from this, and I'm referring to both emotionally and physically because what happened to her was really serious. So let me know how you guys see this situation. What would you have done, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? I regret leaving my wife for my girlfriend. I don't know if I have the right to ask her to take me back. My wife and I separated a year and a half ago. Before that, we were together for 15 years. 15 happy years. We have 2 daughters together, 14 and 12. The last 2 years of our marriage, I thought that we had achieved all that we could achieve. Nothing changed, and we knew each other by heart. The pandemic years were hard on me mentally, being stuck at home 24/7. I didn't know at that time. I thought I was stagnating and out of love with my wife, and that being home made me realize that instead of the truth, that I was depressed because of being home all the time, albeit with her. When I went back to the office after 2 years, I thought my change of humor to the positive was because I wasn't with her, instead of the fact that I could actually get out again. I met Anna, who's 32 years old, and she was one of the new people that we hired. Anna is free and happy, social and high-spirited. She took the office by storm. She was the opposite of my shy and calm wife. I remember when I first met my wife, I was the one who asked her out, and the first 2 years into our relationship, she confessed to me that she had liked me for at least a year before I asked her out. With Anna, she was honest and verbal about how she had a crush on me, like an open book. She proposed to me. I told her that I was married, and she said that we only lived once and that she just wanted to tell me how she felt, no matter if I reciprocated or not. I felt strongly for her. I confessed to my wife that I was out of love with her. She asked me if there was someone else, and I said yes, that it was enough for her to try not to dissuade me. I know that she was hurt and suffering in secret, and I never tried to console her because I didn't want her to know that I knew how much she was hurting. Her pride was always her dearest possession. I moved out a week later to Anna. I thought I was going to be over the moon, but something was missing, even when I felt happy. I thought that it was me missing my children in my home. I used to be with my daughters every day, and now I see them only half of the time. I thought it was my daughters crying and not speaking to me that hurt me. I thought it was the disappointment in their eyes that disturbed my sleep at night. My wife was my rock even in separation. She made sure that the girls didn't refuse to see me. She kept my image whole and always spoke to them about how I loved them and how good a father I was. I knew she was hurting, and I could see her missing me, but she never once once lost her dignity. It was around Christmas when it hit me how much I really lost. Anna had surprised me with a trip to a warm destination because I was feeling down, that this would be the first time I wouldn't celebrate with my daughters who chose their mother. Anna always understood that my blueness was because I missed my girls all the time, and she tried everything to cheer me up. The night before we took our trip, I dropped by my wife to leave my daughter's presents. My wife opened the door and just looked so serene. I lost my balance on an ice patch and she just said, "Oops," and ran toward me to help me with the gifts. I caught a whiff of her smell and that was when it all hit me. I did miss my children and my home and my stability, but most of all, I just missed my wife. I missed her warmth, her voice, her calmness, her wit, and most of all, her smell when I buried my face in her hair and neck on Saturdays when we would sleep in. I knew that I never really stopped loving her. She wasn't the reason I went through a dark period. She was the only light that pushed me forward. I have always missed her. I have tried to explain it away because I have this new brilliant girlfriend who is so different, who is teaching me how to be excited again. My wife's face is the first thing I thought of when I woke up in the morning and looked at the person next to me. And every time Anna kissed me, I closed my eyes to try and imagine my wife's smell. And I pushed these thoughts away because I thought of how miserable my life had been during these pandemic years. My wife was putting up the Christmas tree and I asked her if I could stay for a brewski and she said yes. I started crying in our kitchen and when she asked, I told her that I was missing the girls and how strange it was to not celebrate with them. She comforted me and told me that everything will be okay and to have a nice trip. Change is never easy, even if we wanted it. Now another Christmas is approaching. Anna has booked a new adventure for Christmas and I didn't even protest. For the last year, picking up the children or dropping them off has been what I look forward to just to see my wife's face. I have noticed how she has become happier and more coming to terms with the changes and I envy her. I wish I could tell her how I feel, but I don't want to disturb her healing when she's come so far. I love her like I have never loved her before, but I don't deserve a moment more of her life after what I did. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I have now broken up with Anna. I feel such a weight lifted. Maybe it's not a nice thing to do, breaking up with someone before the holidays, but I needed this. For my own sake, but even for Anna. She doesn't deserve my resentment towards her since I'm the only one to blame for breaking up my marriage, but I can't help but resent her. I can't help but think I don't want someone like her around my daughters. I hope she will be fine and I wish her luck. When I say I blame nobody but myself for breaking up my marriage, the average comment says, "So you are saying Anna is the one to blame for breaking up your marriage?" I'm not going to bother my wife. I probably need to be alone while trying to sort out my feelings and mental issues. I'm just hoping this would make my girls accept me and my home as their second. So what should I do? It sounds like the OP here is at peace with where things are currently. He obviously wants to be with his ex-wife, but he doesn't say anything about trying to push to get back with her. We also don't really know where she stands on this. We know that she's calm and serene, and she sounds like a really good person considering everything that happened to her and her reaction to it all, but maybe she's already dating someone, or maybe she's not at all interested in getting back with him because ultimately he chose another woman over her. We don't really know enough about the wife to say either way, but the one sentiment that is spot on is just giving the wife the respect and time she needs. So let me know how you guys see the situation down below and what would you do? Am I the jerk for being shocked that my friend will get married before me? I have this friend, let's call her Jane. We're in our mid-30s now, but we were roommates since freshman year in college. She's one of my closest friends and I know her super well. And I know that for all of her 20s, she had horrendous luck with her love life and was extremely insecure about it. She always wanted to get married and have kids and kept ending up with D-bags who would cheat on her or men who straight up didn't like her, daddy issues, and crying about it. And I was always there for her through it and reassuring her how she won't die alone. But her love life kind of became a punchline in our group of friends, and sometimes she'd go along with it, especially once she got into her 30s and she was still single. She'd say stuff like, "Haha, yeah guys, we all know I'm gonna die alone," all the time. And I know she was torn up about it, but we were always reassuring her that it's not the case and she was in therapy about it. Anyways, about a year ago, she finally met an incredible man and they fell in love almost instantly. He proposed to her last week and she's just completely over the moon. I've never seen her this happy. This weekend, we all went out to celebrate and all of our friends were saying how we're so happy for her after a long and difficult road, and it was really emotional. For context, I'm still single, no boyfriend, and I want to get married too, but I'm not a pathology like she was, and so I can say, I can't believe Jane will get married before me. She started crying and stormed out and the evening was completely spoiled. I tried calling her this weekend, but she was hysterical and said that I didn't have to point out that she's so unlovable and it's a miracle she tricked someone into proposing. It's quite sad, but that's not what I meant. That's her own baggage. I apologized, but also suggested that she should talk to her therapist about that reaction, and now she completely refuses to speak to me and won't answer my messages. A couple others in our friend group are on her side, while some have said that she's overreacting and will come around. So, am I the jerk? The first thing that I read into this is those original jokes that the OP is referring to probably weren't as funny to Jane as they were to the OP, or as funny to Jane as the OP thought they were. It sounds like the OP assumed, since there was no pushback, that Jane was in on this whole self-deprecating joke that she is going to be single forever, but rather than actually taking it as a joke, she's kind of internalized it and sees herself as being unlovable. And then when she finally does get someone who wants to be with her, she has this guilt complex because of her friend, the OP. It just sounds like the OP is out of touch with what Jane is feeling because she's seeing it exclusively from her perspective. But let me know how you guys see the situation down below. Jerk or not a jerk, and why? I caught my wife cheating on me with 2 guys at the same time after I gave her everything. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. 10 years ago, I thought I had the perfect life. Upper 6-figure job, beautiful wife, clean house, 2 new cars, and a child on the way. My job made me happy and I was good at it, and the stability was great. My wife loved me for me and ignored my flaws as I tried to perfect them. In return, I adored her, and we seemed to be the perfect couple. People would always compliment us and talk about how envious they were of our relationship and everything. It kept getting better. I kept getting promotions. The kids, now 3, were born, and we eventually moved from an ordinary house to an incredibly nice one. My wife was doing very well in her career, an optometrist, and we took fun vacations every year. Again, I thought I had made it. I don't know how this would have prompted it, but in early 2015, I bought her a new Tesla for her birthday. She hadn't gotten a new car since 2008, and I kept getting new cars. Therefore, I surprised her. She loved it, loved me, and I remember spending that entire day just taking rides in it and figuring out how all of the gadgets and icons worked. It was completely downhill from there. I don't know how that would have triggered anything, but in the months following, she became increasingly distant, not only from me, but from our children. My oldest, my 10-year-old daughter in particular, felt hurt by this and would often try to start conversations with her mother in order to get her talking. Some days this would work and she would be pleasant. Others, it would have the opposite effect. The first time I suspected I was no longer her man of choice was in July of 2016 when I noticed she was no longer going to yoga classes but telling me she was. We were on the same phone plan, and a part of the plan was we could see our locations of our phones. I was routinely browsing the app one day and noticed she appeared to be at someone's house. Since she had been irrationally angry that day prior to leaving, I didn't question her about it when she got home from yoga. Instead, I chose to closely observe where she went during her yoga times. It would always seem to end up at the same house, a well-off neighborhood, probably a step above ours, a little north of town. I was getting ready to confront her when I noticed she had been returning to yoga again. During this period, she became increasingly distant and hormonal. My entire family noticed this behavior going on for over a year now, but I had had enough. I sat her down and asked her what was going on. She gave me the cold shoulder, and when I questioned her about the yoga locations, she accused me of stalking, invading privacy, and being a grade A jerk. That's when I asked her, "Are you cheating on me?" Of course, the answer was no. What followed in the weeks to come was distrust, hatred, and plain anger towards me. It was clear she knew I had caught on, but was now trying to play the "I can't believe you think this" victim card. But I knew. I saw through it all. When she finally admitted that she had seen and slept with another man, that's when I made my mistake. I forgave her. She told me she loved me. She loved our family. And in that moment, I believed her. I thought she could change. I was wrong. We tried marriage therapy. We tried taking adult days. It seemed to work. We were happy. And she was genuinely having fun. And it seemed like I had the old her back. I was relieved. This allowed me to pour more time into my kids and my work and have less stress overall. My business trip to San Diego, I live on the east coast of the US, was cut short when my colleague fell ill, and our clients insisted that we reschedule. It was a hassle, but I caught the next flight out and returned home. I'm not sure why I didn't tell her I was coming home, but I just didn't. Maybe I wanted it to be a surprise, but the only surprise I received was when I pulled into the driveway, I saw a Ford SUV in my garage, and not finding one, but 2 men in bed with my wife. This all happened yesterday. I'm finally putting in its words. My wife started babbling when it happened, desperately trying to explain. I heard none of it. I walked out of my room, went to the basement, and poured myself a drink. I could hear the men upstairs leaving, and when I returned upstairs, it was my wife sitting there clothed, with a sad smile on her face. She started talking, but I wouldn't have it. I told her to get out of my house. I informed her that I'd get her stuff to her by the end of the week. She tried to pull the "what about the kids" type of nonsense, but I was just done. I'm sad, but not for her. I'm sad for my kids, and I'm sad for whatever poor soul she meets next. I will fight hard for my kids, but my biggest fear is losing them. I know the court will rule incredibly in favor of mothers. I hope they realize that I've spent the last 3 years doing my best to mend a broken marriage for my family, and nothing has worked. I told my kids this morning. They asked why mom didn't spend the night last night. I didn't make them go to school today. They're all upstairs together. This whole situation is terrible for everyone involved, and it could have been completely preventable. I don't pity my wife. I hope she has one label for the rest of her life: cheater. I want it to follow her. I want people to know she is a prominent optometrist in our area. This could very well hurt her business if word spreads, which it very well may. Thank you for listening. If you've gone through something similar, I'd love to chat. What should I do? I can't believe the original poster here actually took his wife back after he found out she was cheating for the first time. I think for most people, the relationship would probably never be the same again. But it sounded like he just wanted it to go back the way it was before so bad he just went along with it and thought she had changed. But there's nothing to say in this entire story that the person she was cheating on him with originally was even one of the two men that he caught her with in their bedroom. In fact, the one that she admitted to could be a different person than the location that he saw when she was supposed to be at the yoga studio, which could be two different people from the people that she was cheating with when he walked in the bedroom. So if those are all 4 different people, that means she was cheating on him with 4 people at the same time. Not literally in the same moment like those last 2, but that she was juggling some sort of relationship with all 4 at the same time. I get the sense that the wife knew how bad the OP wanted the family to stay together and how far he was willing to go to make that happen, because he stayed with her after she admitted she had cheated on him, that she just wanted to push the boundaries because she thought she could get away with it. In other words, she must have thought that, oh, if that was okay and he'll forgive me for that, he'll probably forgive me for this. But let me know how you see the situation and what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was in this position. My stepson is in love with my daughter. Only people within this household know what's going on. My husband and I have been married for 12 years. We were both previously married before we met, and I came into the marriage with 2 daughters, and he came into the marriage with 2 sons. We have one 11-year-old son between us, and my daughter's ages are 20 and 18. My stepson's ages are 19 and 17, so the older kids are all essentially 1 year apart. Both stepsons have lived out of state with their mother until a little over a year ago. My younger stepson wanted to move in with us, which was fine and great. He's a good kid and wanted to attend public school after being homeschooled his whole life. My 18-year-old daughter and him are both seniors in high school and attend the same school. They have what I thought was a very close sibling bond. They drive to school together, take some of the same classes, have some of the same extracurricular activities. They get along great. Recently, my stepson has been moody and depressed and said that he is unable to sleep at night because he has too much running through his mind. My husband took him to see a doctor about it, and the doctor diagnosed him with anxiety and depression. My husband tried to talk with him more about what's on his mind, and my stepson confesses that he has feelings for a girl and can't stop thinking about it and was worried she didn't feel the same way. My husband told him to just tell the girl how he feels, put it out there, see what she says. So he did. Last night, my stepson told my daughter that he has feelings for her and has for quite a while. My head is not clear and I can't recall at this moment exactly what was written, but my daughter showed me the Snapchat messages, which she didn't want to screenshot because then my stepson would know. So I saw them once before they disappeared into the Snapchat void. I immediately told my husband, who then went to speak with my stepson about the situation and basically told him it was wrong. Understandably, my daughter feels emotionally violated. She has lost all trust in him and no longer feels comfortable around him. We have had to essentially keep them separated for the past 24 hours because my stepson feels horribly awkward and my daughter is experiencing some trauma over it. It is an extremely uncomfortable situation for all involved. Here is where it goes downhill. In my eyes and in my daughter's eyes, this is disgusting and perverted. I truly apologize if that offends anyone. That is not my intention. I am having a very difficult time looking at my stepson the same way now. My first reaction was to send him straight back to his mother, but I didn't say so and just kept my mouth shut. My husband and I had time to sleep on it and talk more about it today. And it turns out he sees nothing wrong with the situation and says, people love who they love. Who am I to judge? I do not feel this way. I am protective of my daughter and her feelings. My husband's parents feel the same way he does. I was raised in a family that would not think this is okay on any level. Keep in mind, my daughter and stepson have been raised as siblings, basically since they were each 4 years old. It's not like they just met and became step-siblings recently. It is clear my husband and I will not agree on whether this is right or wrong. We need a therapist stat to help us navigate this, or our 12-year marriage and 15-year relationship is going to be destroyed. The tension in this house right now is worse than anything I have experienced in my lifetime. Please help me. Am I being completely unreasonable in the way that I am viewing this? Am I making a big to-do about nothing? How do I handle this? How do I protect my daughter without alienating my stepson? I need all the help I can get right now. Thanks in advance for any advice or support, or just real talk that you can give. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I posted here exactly 200 days ago about my stepson confessing his love to my daughter. I had also posted the same topic on the parenting sub, and the majority of the responses I got there were that there wasn't anything gross or creepy about my stepson telling my daughter that he loved her. In fact, every adult we talked to about this incident wrote it off to normal teenage boy hormones. I vehemently disagree and decided to heed all of the advice we got from outside sources and move past it. I shouldn't have done that. Here is the update with the basic, pertinent background information included for those that don't recall. My husband and I have been married / together for almost 15 years. We were both previously married, and he brought 2 sons ages 19 and 17 years old into the marriage, and I brought 2 daughters ages 20 and 18 years old into the marriage. We have 1 son together who is 12 years old. Up until 2 years ago, both of his sons lived with their mother in another state, and my daughters and our young son lived with us. His youngest son, 17 years old, turning 18 in 26 days, moved in with us 2 years ago. It has been a very rocky road for everyone adjusting to him living here. Before moving in, he was homeschooled his whole life and very much sheltered from the real world by his mother as much as humanly possible. He is extremely socially awkward and has no idea how to make friends or interact with people whatsoever, despite our best efforts to help him. Because he and my 18-year-old daughter were in the same grade, juniors when he moved in, they just graduated in June, she basically became responsible for him as his only friend inside and outside of the school. She has hated it all along, and I don't blame her. But my husband feels sorry for his son because he is incapable of having the social skills that most kids that age have. This past winter, our family was in turmoil after stepson sent a text to my daughter one night telling her that he was in love with her. Understandably, every ounce of trust she had in him was destroyed, and she felt violated and disgusted. My immediate reaction was that stepson needed to get out of this house and move back with his mother because my daughter would never feel comfortable around him again, and neither would I. Every adult we talked to about this said that I was making a bigger deal out of it than needed to be, and that we needed to address the situation and move on from it. So despite my instincts telling me otherwise, that is what we did. 2 days ago, my daughter texted me asking me to come to her room immediately. When I go upstairs, she is sobbing hysterically and tells me and shows me that my stepson had placed his phone in her room while she was in the shower and recording a video of her getting dressed. After she went back to her room from the bathroom, she went through his phone and found that he has been doing this for quite some time, because there were numerous videos of her changing and undressing dating back to at least 6 months ago. He had been putting his phone in there while she was showering, and then after she leaves her room, once she dresses, he would sneak in and grab his phone back. Many of the videos had her completely exposed. I told my husband that the kid needed to get the F out of my house now, that I didn't even feel comfortable with him here. My husband once again played the "he's my son, I can't just throw him out" card, and I said BS to that. Stepson is a mentally ill pervert, and I will not have him in this house as long as my daughter or I are here. That trust is gone, and he absolutely disgusts me now. I took his phone from my daughter, and he will not be getting it back. Now my husband and I are at major odds because although my husband admits what he did is sick and unacceptable, he's responsible for him since he's a kid and can't just throw him out and get rid of him like trash, even by sending him back to his mother. The next morning, my husband had time to sleep on it and realized I was right. We need to protect my daughter, and she is at risk as long as stepson stays in this house. Within 8 hours of the incident, I took my daughter and left the state for a week of vacation that had already been planned, though we were not supposed to leave for a few more days. In the meantime, my husband spoke with my stepson's mother, and she agreed he needs to go back to her. He has a stepsister there too, so I am truly concerned for that household as well. I wanted to call the police, press charges, but because he is under 18 and my daughter is over 18, my husband was of the impression that it would basically be like pressing charges on my husband since my stepson is not 18 yet. I have purchased a one-way ticket back to his mother's. He will be gone before we get home from vacation. She is going to get some mental health treatment if that's what she needs. I cannot and will not ever trust my stepson again. He is not showing that he is remorseful about what he did. He's remorseful that he got caught. He has continued to lie about everything since getting caught. He admitted he did it, but said it was only a few times and only started to do it recently. I have video evidence that proves otherwise. So basically what I want to say is, if you ever have a situation like the one we had 200 days ago, don't blow it off and chalk it up to hormones or let anyone tell you that it's not unnatural or unusual. I wish I had listened to my gut at the time. I hate to think how much more this could have progressed if we hadn't found the camera. My daughter is going to need a lot of therapy to overcome this. He is a predator, plain and simple. Jumping into the future, there was one final update. It's been about a year and a half since I last posted and since we last saw my stepsons. Here's the update. We haven't seen either of my stepsons since the one who violated our trust was put back on a plane to his mother. The reason for this is our request was that he could not return to our home until he had been properly evaluated by a healthcare professional and received appropriate therapy and or counseling. To this day, this still has not happened. Not one single appointment for the evaluation or counseling. She is putting it in God's hands. I'm not even kidding. That is the truth of it. My stepsons are now 21 and 19 years old. The one who didn't live with us is welcome anytime and has been told this many times. He chooses not to visit and rarely has contact with my husband over text. He's always been that way despite our efforts. In the 16 years since she and my husband divorced, neither boy has been to a doctor or a dentist one single time unless they were with us. We saw them once or twice per year. My daughter is doing absolutely amazing. Within a month of the big blow up, she got a job and was promoted to manager within weeks. She works extremely hard and bought herself a brand new car and moved into her own apartment in a really fancy new apartment complex. She's happy and thriving and making her way through life, and we couldn't be more proud and relieved. So what should we do from here? I'm kind of shocked that not one single person told her that this was weird or confirmed how she felt about this. Everyone she asked, even on the sub, said that this was totally normal. I mean, maybe you can make that argument if they were just completely untethered, but they both share a 12-year-old sibling. So if they did get married and have their own kid, their brother, the shared sibling, would be the uncle to that child related from both sides. That would be very weird. Maybe not in a biologically ancestral way for the kid, but it's not something you see every day. But the whole point of this is that the daughter didn't even like this guy, and I actually think that the stepson probably doesn't even like this daughter, but he might just be too socially awkward to build other connections to other people, so he's kind of cannibalizing the only people that he knows. The whole situation where he had been filming her is absolutely sick. You are deeply violating someone when you do something like this in a way that I don't think the stepson even understands. And somehow the dad didn't seem to understand it at first either. He had to sleep on it in order to see the magnitude of how wrong this was. We don't know this part of the story, but due to the fact that the husband was originally trying to vouch for him and saying that you can't help who you love, I can only assume that he probably told those same things to the stepson himself, and maybe the stepson saw that as some sort of approval to keep going down this path. Because if you remember, the stepson didn't act on anything until he was diagnosed with anxiety, told his dad what was going on, and his dad's advice was, well, tell the girl how you feel. So it kind of seems like to some degree the stepson is relying on the dad's approval to keep going forward with this, and maybe that's how he interpreted this whole situation in some sick, twisted way. So if these were your kids, how would you handle the situation? Let me know down below. Am I the jerk for going on an outing without my partner? I'm a 21-year-old male and I've been together with my partner, who's a 22-year-old female, for about 2 years now. For a bit of background, my partner and I live in 2 different cities, and so we are only able to meet up maybe once or twice a week. This past week, however, I told my partner that I did not want to meet up as the gas prices were extremely high, and as the primary driver between the two of us, she doesn't drive, I felt that my request was reasonable. To my relief, my partner was extremely understanding and made other arrangements to hang out with our close mutual friend group. Things were going fine until I found out that my partner and our friends were going to watch a movie that we were both dying to watch. As a result, I began to feel a bit of FOMO and told my partner that I wanted to see her after all. Without missing a beat, my partner immediately canceled on our friends and began to get ready for our meeting. At the same time, one of our mutual friends messaged me to ask if I was interested in taking my partner's place since they had already purchased a ticket for her. I agreed and told my partner that I was going to see the movie with our friends. She then got extremely mad at me and said that had I told her earlier, she could have transited and made it in time for the movie as well. Now, the only way for her to make it in time would be for me to drive and pick her up. However, I reminded her that I initially didn't want to pick her up due to the distance between us as well as the high gas prices. In the end, I went to the movie without her as I felt that it would have been a waste of a ticket and that my partner should have known how badly I wanted to watch the movie. Now that the movie is over, I have been trying to reach my partner, but she has not read any of my messages. So, am I the jerk? Does this one win the award for the most obvious jerk of all time on this channel? I think it's up there. Top 10 easily. So let me get this straight. He says he doesn't want to hang out with her because it's too far and gas costs too much. So she makes other plans to go to a movie. He says he does want to hang out with her, but not because of her, but because of the FOMO about the movie. So she cancels on everyone to hang out with him. And since she canceled, there's an available ticket that they invite him to go to the movie instead of her. So basically what he did was he ousted her out of the movie, took her spot, and thought that she would be okay with it, all under the guise of cancel with them so you can hang out with me. But she didn't get to do that either. So she ended up with doing nothing. She didn't get to go to the movie with her friends, and she didn't get to see him. And he took her spot. This is crazy. Crazy that he would think there's any possible interpretation where he is not the jerk. So if you somehow see this differently, let me know how and why down below, and jerk or not a jerk and why. My teacher bullied me and my entire family. So I came up with the ultimate revenge plan to provoke her until the point that she actually swung at me. She busted my lip and gave me a bloody smile. And that's when I took everything from her life. This is the story of how I utterly ruined my teacher's life. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. The town where this happened is a small one, and the school I went to is a 70-year-old school. My granddad and my dad are also alumni of this school. Let me just start off by saying that the alumni of this school are really successful, and the school has a long history of being very charitable and also offer amazing retirement benefits to teachers depending on how long they've worked here. My great-granddad donated some of his property to the school when it was being constructed, and he was an advisor and part of the school board at this time. The school was an all-boys school up until 1996 when they had their first co-ed class, and is now a full co-ed school. The school also has all classes from kindergarten to high school, split in two buildings. The first one houses kindergarten to 5th grade, and the other has the classrooms for 6th grade to 12th grade. So this is where part 1 begins. Teacher versus dad, the incident. Said teacher, we're gonna call her MD, was my dad's math teacher when he started high school. She was a young woman just finishing her teaching degree and was a master's in math and chemistry. At that point, she was the most qualified teacher the school had. Unfortunately, MD was also a nasty person. She walked into the class and the students were expected to be sitting in ready mode, back straight, legs together, and hands on their laps, with only the needed textbook and a pencil to take notes on the margins. The class was expected to greet her with a good morning, good afternoon when she walked in, and she assigned tons of weekend homework. She would simply stop teaching for the entire hour-long class if one person, without having asked to speak, spoke. You couldn't drink water without her permission, couldn't go to the restroom unless she finally saw your raised hand and asked you to speak. There were multiple cases of people complaining about that, but with her being the most qualified teacher there, the school board didn't take action. Instead, they supported her by saying that this would help discipline the students. But this is not even the beginning of it. Her exams were incredibly hard, and with the classes being full of teenage boys, they would talk, and even one of them doing so would cause her to stop teaching and not teach until the next class. She would then lecture on a different topic, completely skipping that part of chemistry. Suffice to say, before finals, the entire class was in a panic state, trying to self-study enough to at least pass the class. My dad ended up getting 41%. Our education system said you failed the class if you had under a 40%, so he was relieved that he passed. But when he went through his answer sheet, my dad noticed that his totaling was incorrect and that he had in fact a 49 on that test. He raised his hand, and after about 5 minutes or so of him just sitting in his seat calmly with his hand raised, he was called on and MD asked what the problem was. My dad told her that there was a totaling mistake in the final and that he actually had a 49. This somehow offended her. Instead of calling him forth and checking his paper, MD decided that it was simply impossible for her, a master's in math, to make a mistake in something as simple as addition. She waved him off, and my dad was shocked, but she just calmly turned to the next person with a question. My dad, on the other hand, was not happy. He walked up from his seat, which was basically considered a crime in her class, and put the paper on MD's desk and started totaling his points loudly. MD incredulously watched him do that and was at a loss for words, though when he was finally done totaling, you could see her face was flushed and she was furious. She looked furiously from the paper to my dad and then back to the paper, and then suddenly a cruel smile appeared on her face.
Okay, I see the mistake, but that's no excuse for this behavior. This awards a subtraction of 10 points from your final.
The class that was amazed at the first sentence went back to having a grim look, and my dad stood there, jaw dropped, that he now had 39 9 points and had failed its class. Instead of responding and making the situation worse, he simply took his final, packed his backpack, and left the classroom. He went and spoke to his granddad, who was on the school board, but he said he couldn't do anything since grades were completely in the hands of the teacher as far as he was concerned. My dad took his loss and decided that revenge was not worth the trouble and switched classes. He dropped chem and took up econ, and that was the last interaction he ever had with his teacher. Part 2. Teacher versus my brother and I. My younger brother is 2 years younger than me, and so when I was a freshman starting high school, my younger brother was in 7th grade. We had an auditorium under construction and the library was newly renovated, so a teacher was assigned to chaperone the younger class students at the library. My younger brother's class unfortunately had MD as their chaperone. My dad had specifically instructed me to be very careful around MD, and I was on the lookout, but my younger brother had no idea just who he was dealing with. Before summer, our library allowed students to take any 2 books of their choice for the break, so when my brother walked past MD to the librarian and was stopped by MD, he was really confused. He had an Enid Blyton book and a copy of Backyard Science Experiments. Both my younger brother and I are really good at science-related topics, and he had been waiting for summer break to do some cool science experiments at home with me. MD said,
Wait a minute, what book do you have there, B?
B, my younger brother, said, a storybook and a backyard science book, ma'am.
And what do you think you're going to do with that backyard science book?
Turning to the other library staff.
I taught his father. No brains in there. You would have no idea what to do with this book. Leave it for someone who does.
And with that, she snatched the book from his hands and walked away. The library staff giving awkward laughs behind her. When he came looking for me crying, I was furious. I was a really popular guy at school. I won quizzes and debates and represented the school in national competitions. My friends and I literally had an entire showcase of trophies at school with our names embossed on it, and most teachers loved us. Man, the vice principal of the school and our group were on first name basis. He chaperoned us on all the competitions we represented the school in, but when he told me what had happened, I was dumbfounded. I had no idea how to react, but for the moment, I went to the library and got another copy of the Backyard Science book to console my brother. But then we were out for summer vacation and I didn't think too much of it. Side note, in the summer we attended a science summit and my school friends and I won prizes for having the most efficient hydraulic gear-based pulley system and the second fastest chemical fuel race boat. This was before I ever took a high school chemistry or physics course. This was announced in school assembly the first day after summer break. When we came back for fall, I had a chem class with MD the first day of school. This was also right after the assembly where my group was given the award. So we go to the chem lab and MD is one of the lab instructors setting up an experiment designed to liberate hydrochloric acid fumes in a gas flask. Some moments passed by and we could see that some mistake had been done as there was no reaction in the mixture. It turns out the zinc granules were impure and rusted, but MD somehow got the idea that turning on the Bunsen burner at full blast would help the experiment. After collecting the gas for about 3 minutes, which is 2.5 minutes too long since hydrochloric acid fumes are toxic if inhaled, she is satisfied. She then pulls up the flask to show the class how we do experiments. The cherry on top is when she opens the flask and brings it uncomfortably close to the girl beside me. MD says,
Does it smell pungent?
The girl awkwardly smells it and jerks away. To someone who has no clue, that would be a plausible confirmation, but I knew that it was complete horse doo-doo. I could see that the girl knew about pungent fumes and cringed away on reflex, and not because it was actually pungent. I don't know why I did it, but at that moment, I snorted loudly. MD instantly zooms in on me, walking toward me with her face contorting into an ugly expression, and she goes,
Something funny you'd care to share with us?
I knew I messed up, but I was also angry. This person in front of me had bullied my younger brother and my dad. I remembered that, and suddenly, all my verbal sensors were shut down. I told her, you and I both know that she didn't smell anything pungent. That experiment you just did was a failure.
Oh, you think you know more than me?
She turned to the class.
He thinks he knows more than me. You know what? I'll step down. Why don't you teach the class, Professor OP?
I said, oh, absolutely. To the absolute shock of everyone watching, I walk up to the podium and while maintaining eye contact with MD, I say, first thing to remember class, turn to experiment 1 of your lab textbook. Read the warnings. The gas is pungent and also poison.
How dare you! Has no one taught you manners? This is no roadside shack and you will do well to remember that. Else you're going to have a couple of broken bones.
This was originally in a different language, but if you want the exact translation, it was, I'll break your limbs and feed them to you. She is absolutely furious, grabs me by the hand and proceeds to drag me to the principal's office. On the way there, we cross the vice principal's office and he sees MD dragging me away and runs out. The vice principal says, "What's going on here?" Before I can say anything, MD starts ranting to him about how disrespectful and unacceptable my class behavior is and is heaving by the end of her spiel. The VP gives me a searching look and then responds with, "Go back to class, MD. I'll deal with him." We head back to his office and he offers me a seat and a glass of water. Then he says, "Now what actually happened in class, OP?" He asks with a sigh. I tell him exactly what happened. Once he hears my side of the story, he looks at me incredulously and asks me if I really went to the podium and started lecturing the class. I look up and see the gobsmacked look on the VP's normally reserved face. Imagine someone who looks like a male Minerva McGonagall being completely shocked. I couldn't stop myself. I started with a snicker, which then turned into full-blown laughter. I laughed until my stomach hurt and my eyes teared up. To my surprise, the vice principal was also smiling wildly at that. He shook his head and that reversed his expression back. "I know what happened there had you concerned for class safety, but that is no reason for such disruptive behavior. Aside from that, I'm gonna personally investigate what happened in that class, and if MD is found to be intentionally forcing students to inhale harmful chemicals, she will be sacked immediately. Oh, and you're supposed to hand over a written apology to MD about this behavior. Now get moving." I sighed and headed back to class, and I really thought that I had ended MD's career. Oh, how wrong I was. She changed the story so it looked like she had purposely done the experiment wrong and was about to reprimand that girl for inhaling what could have been a harmful chemical. MD pulled one on me and had me look like I was just an insolent child who thought that he knew everything by reading a chapter of the book. And here I stopped myself. This event was me just going in head on with the teacher who had been in the school for longer than 35 years. Which brings us to part 3, pro-revenge mode. Now I knew that I wanted to help my brother, but I needed to get rid of her. My dad knew about what happened in school and he wanted me to not engage with MD. He said it wasn't worth it, but by now I was in the game. She had played her card. It was my turn now. I don't know what made it so that she had such a problem with my dad and my younger brother. They were quiet and hardworking students. I felt she had something against our family and I was convinced that my younger brother would have to deal with the problem if I somehow messed up and got expelled or made a worse enemy out of MD. This was war and I had a new plan. I started to act really sheepish around her and made it a point to stay back after class and ask her questions in the most polite way possible. I was the kid who was guilty of not understanding the plans of elders. I portrayed myself as an amazing student who MD had succeeded in humbling. I slowly but surely made my way into the category best described by the term bootlicker. It hurt me inside to do it, but with what I had planned, if this went well, it made me lightheaded with anticipation. I was in it to win it. I conceded defeat in a fight to win the war. 2 years later, I'm in junior year. My brother just started high school and he was taking the chemistry class with MD. I was the highest scorer in chemistry and was a pet to MD. She had started to like the version of me that I had portrayed and made me the lab assistant for that year. 2 of my best friends knew what I had planned. Everyone else in the class hated me for being the teacher's pet and getting straight A's when the next highest grade was a B-. Everything was going according to plan. On the first day of class, I replaced her stool, one of the 3-legged ones, with a broken stool. This was supposed to be the first in a series of pranks that would hit her that day. She came to class and went to take her seat, and boy, she fell. Well, she somehow hit her hand on the wall and cried out. Yep, that must have hurt. She was definitely overweight, and it couldn't be traced back to me. I smiled on the inside as I rushed to her and helped her back up. I ran and fetched her another chair. While inside, the freshmen were trying their best not to laugh. When I got back from the room that had the extra stools, I walked into the side of her screaming like a banshee. But what got me furious was that she was screaming at my younger brother. Apparently, she had said something like,
"Stupid tools and stupid lab assistant fools."
To which my brother had responded with, "It's not my brother's fault you're too heavy for the stool." Though I loved him for it, he really needed to learn where to come to my aid. But then I didn't do much. I just replaced the chair while silently trying to communicate to my brother to calm down. Nothing else of concern happened that day till the time when school was over and the teachers were heading back. Stage 2 was in motion. We heard a loud bang and immediately the large crowd of students nearby all headed towards the teacher's car parking lot. We saw MD's car smoking and the exhaust blown right off. Keep in mind that it was an older car and we had decided to block off the exhaust with clay that had hardened over the course of 6 hours on a sunny day. Well, that car had to be towed, and she went home with some other students that day. She didn't show up to school for 2 days after that, but she did show up to school on the third day, which was a half school day because our country celebrates Teachers Day. It is a tradition that students go to their teachers, current and old, and wish them the best, give them cards, gifts, etc. This was by far the most ambitious prank pulled in the school that I know of. The 2 days she was absent, we went around telling everyone not to visit her on Teachers Day. It helped a lot that my friends and I were some of the most popular people in school, and with the other cool guys and girls agreeing to that, we spread the word and got confirmation that no one from the entire class in my year was going to wish her well on Teachers Day. But what actually happened was something that nobody could have expected. I guess it could be because we acted so fanatical about it that our classmates spread the word to all their friends, and no one, not a single person in the school, went to her on Teachers Day. It was the most amazing feeling of accomplishment I have ever had. She had made the situation herself by being the nastiest person I've ever seen. It was no surprise people were fine with doing this to her. For the first time in 70 years in our school, a teacher had not a single well-wisher on Teachers Day. Well, things are never perfect, and as it so happened, word of what had conspired got to her. The next day, I had just set up the lab. The freshmen were getting settled in, and here comes MD, anger radiating from her in waves. She walks up to me, and I get the hardest slap I have ever gotten in my life, right across my face. I hate to admit it, but that left a blue mark on my cheek, and my nose and lip were bleeding. My younger brother, who saw that happen, ran towards me, but my shock slowly subsided, and I smiled a bloody smile that probably scared him. I told him to get the vice principal. 20 minutes later, I was in the school emergency room with a nurse wiping my lip and holding a cloth to my nose. The vice principal comes in with the principal and 2 cops in tow. They tell me my parents have been informed and ask me if I would like to talk about it now or when my parents are here. I say that I can answer their questions as soon as I get my lip bandaged. So I tell them about the cases of bullying against my brother and I, and also tell them that she is a really incompetent teacher. I tell the principal that he could check the school average in science subjects. And sure as I guessed, in the average scores in the national exams, our physics and biology scores came in at 92 and 90, with chemistry at a surprising 79. Topping that off with assault charges, she lost her license to teach 2 years before she retired, and with that, lost amazing retirement benefits that the school offered. Her car also had no insurance. That's not all though. One could ask, what could be worse? Well, consider this. The fall she had off the stool ended up with her going to the hospital for an x-ray of her wrist and hip that she suspected might have been broken. Well, the wrist sure had a hairline fracture. The hip was fine, but well, the x-ray showed another thing. I don't think it's normal for anyone to laugh when someone is diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, but I did. Also, I later met with her only living family member, her nephew, who had long cut all contact with her but had been contacted by the police in the hospital. That's where I found out the truth. Well, I never could have guessed what I found out there. MD's mom was my great-granddad's niece, through my great-granddad's younger brother who had stolen money from the family and tried to kill my great-granddad. Well, he was disowned, and no one knew this entire time. Well, not that anyone would care. I'm just happy that this nasty woman is out of our lives, for good this time, because apparently she died last year with no one by her side. So, am I the jerk for how I got my revenge? This revenge went deep, and when he coordinated everyone to not visit her on Teachers Day, he must have known that something was going to come of that, but he probably didn't expect it to be getting his lip busted by his own teacher. I have a feeling that the entire revenge plan was probably going to be a bit more elaborate than this, but when she swung on him, he didn't have to execute his plan any further. That was it. He showed it to the vice principal and the principal, the police come, she loses everything, her retirement, her current license, and this entire war that they've been waging between the two of them. One thing I did wonder is what language the expression that she used comes from. I'll break your limbs and feed them to you. If anyone knows what language that originally comes from, let me know down below, because I'm sure it probably just translates weird over to English, but sounds more natural in the native language. And as unlikable as the teacher was throughout this entire thing, I'm sure she probably was really hurt that nobody came to visit her on Teachers Day. Not nobody in that one grade, but nobody at all. She might have even cried when that happened, and when she found out who caused it, that fear and sadness of nobody being there turned into anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. And ultimately, she suffered quite a lot at the end of this, because after it was all said and done, with no family, no retirement, no vindication, and she had to deal with this assault charge, she ended up getting cancer and then dying. So now that you know the whole story, was this revenge justified, or was it going too far? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. A Karen thinks I know nothing about business because I'm a woman and demands to be served by a man. But I am the department manager. So when a man does come to serve her, he has to come to me because I'm his manager. And the Karen did not like that one bit. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I work in a hardware store and a woman who was one of our customers demanded to speak to a male employee because she thought that I couldn't do my job. So I maliciously complied. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened 16 years ago. When I was about 20 years old, I was a department manager in a big box hardware store. People said I acted 25, but I didn't even look 18. As a young female, I saw my fair amount of discrimination, but the worst always came from women. This is the story of one such woman. I managed the paint department. I had 3 associates who worked for me. They loved me as a boss because I bought them a department radio, took the shifts they didn't want, worked Friday close and Saturday mid so my 2 younger guys could have time to have fun on Friday nights, and the older gentleman took early Saturday morning so they could sleep off their fun. In trade, I gave the older gentleman his ideal schedule. My team was awesome. One day, I was in the department alone and a lady came up and asked me where she could find the 5-gallon oil-based primer. I let her know that my location didn't carry the 5-gallon size of that primer. She told me that we did and said that it was shelved right there, suggesting that I was too stupid to remember. Her husband gave me an apologetic look. I let her know that another location had what she was looking for and that it was in fact in that exact location at that store. She let me know how stupid she thought I was for thinking that she could mix up stores. Then she began yelling and loudly insisting that I get a man out there to help her because she wanted someone competent and not a stupid little girl. Her husband actually tried to step in at that point, but I just smiled at her and let her know that a male paint associate would be clocking in any minute and that I would be happy to direct him to her as soon as he is on the clock. I smiled and waited for Joe to clock in. Joe was great and I knew he could handle this or I wouldn't have put him in this situation, but Joe was also new. He was learning things super quick but still relied on the rest of us for help. When I saw Joe walking up, I quickly said that there was a customer who needed help. I let him know that she was upset and asked him to do his best to answer her questions. Joe walked up to the lady and she said, "Oh, finally a man!" She asked her question, explained where the product should be, and waited. Joe calmly let her know that he had never seen us carry 5-gallon sizes of that oil-based primer, but he said that he could check with the paint department manager. She was happy and loudly said that she was happy to get some real help. Joe walked up to me and started to ask me about 5-gallon oil-based primers. The lady quickly walked up and asked him what he was doing. He turned around and said, "This is my manager. She runs this department." The husband laughed out loud. The woman stormed off and I bought Joe lunch. Was I the jerk? It's a shame that the OP has to deal with people like this, and it's kind of surprising that according to the OP, the worst of this type of discrimination always seems to come from other women. I think a lot of people would probably assume that a woman wouldn't have these sort of assumptions and stereotypes about other women, but according to the OP, that's the most common scenario for this type of situation to happen. It sounds like the guy this lady came with, her husband, is used to seeing this because he was already trying to mouth an apology and at the end he just bursts out laughing at his wife for how foolish she seemed by acting like this. So if you're in this situation, let me know how you would have handled this down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. A bank customer did not expect her to be the manager. In my first banking job, the branch manager was a 23-year-old Asian woman. The branch office I worked in is in a wealthy neighborhood with mostly white retirees. We had a lot of sweet little old ladies who just loved coming into our branch because out of the 6 people working there, it was all women and 1 man, and the 1 man was a bank teller. So all the bankers and the manager and the assistant manager were all young women. We did not do this on purpose and it was only like this for a few months, but the old ladies loved it because back in their day, women were the secretaries and not the bankers. Anyway, some of the little old men did not care for it as much. One time, this man comes in storming, pissed off about a $3 charge on his account, and says, "I want to speak to your manager. Is he in?" I looked at him and said, "Our manager is here. Let me call her." The look on his face when he saw our bombshell of a manager come strutting out to meet with him was priceless. this. Somebody followed up with a story that said, dude, I get this. We occasionally have this old dude who comes into our bank who refuses to work with women. The problem is our manager was a woman and had no sympathy for the sexist dude. Our new manager is a flamboyantly gay guy, so I'm sure that will come with its own fun times. There's a lot of people that are just stuck in their own ways of thinking, like in both of these stories. In the first one, the old man doesn't want to speak to the woman manager because he's used to the managers being men. But at a certain point, if he's going to get anything done in that bank, he's going to have to accept that that's how it is and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It shouldn't matter what the gender of the manager at that bank is, because either way, they're probably going to help you out with whatever you need. But let me know if you've ever seen any situations like this. Give me the money you put aside for your baby because you might still miscarry. So 2 years ago, I got pregnant for the first time. Chris, my husband, and I told our families, and Rory, Chris's dad, my father-in-law, was overjoyed at the idea of a grandchild. And at Lisa's suggestion, Lisa is Chris's mom, my mother-in-law, Rory, my father-in-law, gave me and Chris a check for £1,000. He said this was to pay for a nursery and the rest should be kept safe until the baby was 18. Shortly after this, when I was at about 12 weeks, I had a miscarriage. We tried to give Rory his money back, but he asked if we were ever going to try again. We said someday, but not anytime soon. Rory said to put the money in a savings account and add to it so that when we do have a baby, we have the money for it. Chris and I agreed, and after that, we made an account, deposited the check, and tried to put in about £10 per week. As it's been 2 years of regular topping up, the account currently has around £2,500 in it. We've missed a week here or there, but we have never taken money out of it. Chris and I have both been to therapy and agreed to try again. I'm currently 4 months pregnant. We waited this time until we were both out of the danger zone, a period where miscarriage rates are higher, before we invited our families over to our place and told them over lunch. Everyone seemed really happy for us, except for my brother Tom. I pulled Tom to one side and asked why the long face, and he told me that he knew about the baby fund and had been intending to ask me for it. In the conversation after that, Tom said that Sean, my nephew, is going to university in a couple of years. He's 16 now, and Tom doesn't feel that maintenance grants will be enough for Sean to live comfortably. These grants are up to £7,500 per year. I said that Sean could get a job, and Tom said that he doesn't want Sean working through A-levels because it'll affect his grades. Tom also said that he and his wife, who are both in their mid-30s, had Sean at the time when they would have gone to university, so they couldn't go, and because of this, it's important to them that Sean goes. He figured as me and Chris are on a £10 per hour, and Tom and his wife are on a £9 per hour, this means that we automatically have money to burn. I replied that the baby fund was, shockingly enough, for my baby. Tom then said, I figured you know, the last time, then this one, it isn't a done deal yet. I told him no. Tom then immediately told Kelly, our mom, how I was refusing to give him the baby fund, and now both Tom and my mom, Kelly, are mad because Sean needs the money and we're a family. Sean did not even know Tom was asking me for the money, or that the money existed. And for some side clarification, Kelly is my and Tom's mom, Sean's grandmother. Tom and his wife, who isn't relevant to this story, are Sean's parents. This is a story of intergenerational entitlement. So going back to the story, to this day, the only people to ever contribute to the baby fund are Rory with his starter money, and me and Chris with our £10 per week and bonuses. We don't even consider that money to be ours anymore. And even when Chris and I were in dire straits and could really have done with some of the money in the fund, we still didn't touch it, because as far as we're concerned, that's our baby's money. It turns out that Lisa, my mother-in-law, told Kelly, my mom, about the existence of the baby fund years ago, as Kelly makes quite a bit of money, so Lisa, my mother-in-law, thought that Kelly might want to contribute to the fund. Tom complained to Kelly about not having enough money, so Kelly told Tom about the baby fund and said, what's the harm in asking? Tom and his wife have had 16 years to save up. Me and Chris have never taken a holiday, and they go on 2 per year. And then when they realized they had no savings left, they decided to try and take the money that the entire family knows is for mine and Chris's baby, while telling me that there's still a chance I'll miscarry since I've already miscarried once. Also, they have a daughter who's about 10, so if I give my current baby fund to Sean and then start rebuilding, there's no way that 8 years from now they won't ask for my new fund for the daughter. Neither kid is entitled, but they could really do with an out to get away from their crazy entitled parents. But if it weren't for them, then we wouldn't even be on speaking terms with Tom. So what should we do? So before I even talk about the actual story, I have no idea why the OP decided to name everyone by their first name in this instead of just saying my mother-in-law, my mother, my father. I thought there was going to be some purpose to that at the end of the story, but no, it's just a whole lot of names. That's why I kept trying to clarify who was the brother, who was the nephew, etc., etc. So the actual story is a pretty bizarre bizarre case of entitlement. Her brother wants the money from their baby fund because he thinks that they might have a miscarriage. That's a pretty dark thought to have, and the fact that he had a long face as if he was upset or disappointed that she did get pregnant and didn't have a miscarriage yet is pretty sad. That your own brother would be rooting for you to have a miscarriage because it would mean that he would get some extra money out of it, or at least that's how he sees it, because what logic would possibly make him think that he would get the money from this when this is for the baby fund? Even if his sister, the OP here, did have a miscarriage, what makes him think that they wouldn't try to have another baby? This is the kind of thing that breaks families apart over something as trivial as money in a situation like this. It's sad that the OP even has these kind of people in her life to begin with, but at least she does have Rory, her father-in-law, who seems to be one of the few people in the situation that actually care. Even when she had the miscarriage the first time, he said, you know, if you're gonna have another baby, just hang on to it until you have that baby, and you can use it for that baby. Everything else from the perspective of Tom and the mom is a series of weird mental gymnastics to try and justify this whole thing. So if this happened to you with your own family, would you be okay with it? Would you say something? If so, let me know what you would say down below. An entitled mother thinks that she has the right to set up camp in my living room. Here's some background. For my first semester in university, I had decided to live in dorms because they were so close to campus and my scholarship would cover a portion of the housing. These dorms were suite style, so they had 5 bedrooms with 2 people in each room. And we all shared a common area in the center. The entitled kid in this story was the only one who knew her roommate beforehand because they had moved here from Texas together. Here's the cast. K is my dorm mate, M is K's roommate, EM, the entitled mother, is K's squatter mom, RA is the resident assistant, and I'm the OP. So the first day of check-in was absolutely insane. With 10 students in each room, we had 80 people on each floor, and the RA had to check in each person individually. So we really didn't get time to know each other between the line and unpacking. Everyone's parents were there to help them move and to say goodbye. Our floor was all freshmen. Because of this, nobody really thought twice about the entitled mother still being there that night. My roommate and I went to the opening ceremonies and didn't get home until probably 1 a.m. and we were really surprised to see the entitled mother asleep on the couch. We chalked it up to thinking that her flight back to Texas may not be until the next day and just went to bed. That morning, we woke up to the most delicious smell of bacon, omelets, and waffles. Everyone slowly filed out of their rooms thinking one of our dorm mates had made us food before our first day of class. Boy, were we wrong. The entitled mother had gone through the fridge and the cupboards taking ingredients from wherever she could find, meaning it was our food. As a student with no job at that point, the food she took from me and my other roommates was supposed to last the first couple weeks of school until we could get a job or parents sent some money. All of us were very obviously annoyed, but she seemed completely oblivious to the dirty looks. The entitled mother and Kay were just munching away while their dishes and mess were piled all over the counter. Eventually, M, Kay's roommate, walks out and they excitedly tell her that they made breakfast for her too. We were all dumbfounded, but kept quiet as we hurried to eat cereal or toast. My classes were in the afternoon, so I didn't get back from campus until around 4:30 p.m. I was expecting the mess to be cleaned and the entitled mother to be gone, but as I walked in, the counters were still covered in their dishes and the entitled mother, K, and M were playing on my Xbox. I cleared my throat to get their attention. All I got was a side glance from M, who looked like she'd been caught doing something really bad. As I peer further over the couch, I realized they went through all of my tech box to set up my Xbox, leaving everything from my Wii to all of my movies scattered on the ground. I was absolutely livid. I went and unplugged the Xbox in the middle of their game. This made the entitled mother completely lose it.
You brats, we were in the middle of something!
Yeah, in the middle of my stuff. I expect you to put it all away. After hearing that, Kay tried to get up to start clearing my stuff. She couldn't even get all the way off the couch before the entitled mother tugged her back down.
Kay doesn't listen to you, she listens to me! Maybe ask me before you're assuming you're in charge!
I didn't feel the need to deal with any more of this nonsense, so I gathered all my things and shoved them into my room. Fast forward 2 weeks and we have our floor meeting with the RA. He explained certain rules like when the quiet hours are and that a guest can only stay 2 nights consecutively. At this point, the entitled mother had fully turned our living room into her bedroom by putting sheets on the couch and the whole 9 yards. K and M shared a glance and ran back to our dorm dorm. The second the meeting was over, I marched up to the RA and tell him that someone has had a guest since the first day of class. He looks absolutely dumbfounded as I lead him to our dorm. When I walk in, K and M are sitting on the couch as if nothing happened, and there was no signs of the entitled mother. The RA took K into the hallway and they talked for 10 minutes. Apparently, she had been begging the entitled mother to leave, but she just wouldn't. After hearing the rule, Kay went and told the entitled mother she has 5 minutes to get out or she won't be allowed to live there anymore. That isn't true, but she needed to sound serious. The entitled mother got up and left to drive back to Texas, which she could have done at any moment. The real kicker of this story is that there was a bed and breakfast not even 30 yards from the building's entrance. So, what should we have done? Part of me wants to think that maybe the entitled mother was really in dire straits and she had nowhere else to go, and she's already exhausted all of her other options, and this was her last resort before ending up homeless on the street, or in an even worse scenario. But right off the bat, just the fact that she wakes up the next morning, steals all the other students' food, who most of which don't even have jobs, cooks up this big breakfast but only for her, M, and K, makes it seem like that's probably not the case. Because if she really was, she would be laying low, trying to stay out of people's way, and just not be noticed in general. Taking other people's food that you live with and eating it is probably the quickest way to make everyone living with you not like you anymore. And in the end, apparently going back to Texas was an option all along. If what Kay said was true and she's been begging her mom to leave this entire time, then I feel bad for Kay, because maybe they have some sort of weird power dynamic where the mother just imposes and Kay can do nothing about it. But let me know how you guys see this situation and how would you have handled it? Let me know down below. Am I the jerk for charging to take photos of the bride? I'm a photographer and one of my family members had sent me a couple that was looking for a wedding photographer. From the get-go, this couple was being very frugal with their money. Since I had sympathy, I cut my prices to help lower that burden. From the get-go, they tried cutting every corner they could to get the most out of me. They wanted to dress up their kid, bring them to their engagement shoot so they could also sneak in some family photos. Not cool, I didn't allow it. They booked me for 3 hours of their wedding, and I knew this was going to pose a problem, but 3 was all they could afford and apparently all they needed. Leading up to the wedding, I knew that we didn't have any time to spare when it came to the photos. I asked the bride for the itinerary for the wedding and also all must-have photos with an example for her to use. The day before the wedding, she says there isn't a schedule and we will wing it. And the shot list definitely showed that someone did it last minute. The wedding day comes and everything is an unorganized disaster. There were very few moments where the bride and groom could actually be taken away. The wedding was at 5 on a Friday. I was booked from 5 to 8. While I'm capturing all of the important shots on the list, I'm trying to grab solo photos of the bride and groom, but they don't make time for me. Something was always coming up to where when we were ready to go outside, they would tell me to wait. I even pushed my time to 8:30 because I knew there would be some regret later. So I tell them I'm leaving and I just need a photo of them too. The groom comes out yelling because I've taken him away from the party to take, quote, stupid pictures. And honestly, the behavior was grotesque. I took the picture and left. A week passes and I get a text from the bride at 11 p.m. Oh my God, I was just having so much fun that I didn't realize we didn't take any solo shots of myself. And she didn't, because she wouldn't make time to take them, because she wouldn't give me a schedule that we could actually work with. So now the bride is requesting that I do a greatly discounted or free bridal shoot for her, since I didn't get any solo shots from the wedding. Am I the jerk for charging her for these photos? This is a pretty cut and dry situation. This isn't even the OP's family, it's just some couple that the OP's family recommended to her. And it sounds like the OP's already gone out of their way to give discounts, stay later than was necessary, and worked around a non-existent schedule in order to make this happen. So there's no need to do this for free or at a great discount at all. Just say how much it costs to do a full bridal shoot, and if she wants to do it, she'll pay that amount. If not, it's not like other photographers can't do this. It doesn't have to be OP specifically. I think the bride just wants it to be the OP so that it's greatly discounted or free. And speaking about the family member that actually recommended these people, the OP said, "Trust me, my family member has apologized profusely, especially after their engagement session, which definitely foreshadowed what was going to happen at the wedding, but that's another story." So if you were in the situation, would you see this couple as frugal or entitled? And how would you handle it? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? A Karen tries to ruin a cancer patient's Make-A-Wish day so her child won't be inconvenienced. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I saw the absolute end-all be-all last week. I work for a small production company and we do a ton of charitable work. That day, a few of our crew members, myself included, were lent out for a Make-A-Wish type thing for a girl whose wish was to have her original song made into a music video. She was battling cancer, so of course, every precaution had to be taken, COVID-wise. The director reserved a scenic section of the park and got all set up there so we could be outdoors with plenty of distance. Apparently, this was the only section of the park with a picnic area. We weren't aware of this, and occasionally, some people would come over pretty miffed asking why we'd reserved the whole picnic area. But before they could get the whole complaint out, they'd realize the situation and leave us be, embarrassed to have even asked. This young lady was around 14 or 15 years old and having a great time shooting these scenes for her music video until cue Karen, a mess of cheap Botox and overpriced athleisure gear, started crossing over our clearly marked barricades with her daughter, who was around 6 or 7 years old. Our PA, the production assistant, rushed over, figuring she was just too dumb to notice all of our signage and physical blockades, and explained in a hushed tone that she was intruding on a private film set. Karen replied intentionally loudly that it was a public park and she had every right to use any part of it she pleased. Now, was it a tad bit inconvenient that we'd commandeered a large strip of public land, the only area with seating? Absolutely, but the handful of people who'd wander over to complain immediately processed the nature of this project and gladly made other plans for themselves. Karen wasn't budging, but we had a permit from the city to be there, so we let her know that she could quiet down or shove off. We actually had a right to have her ejected if she was being disruptive to our filming. We really didn't want to though, and we didn't exactly have the manpower to do it without calling the authorities, and we didn't want to put a damper on this fun event or make a scene in front of her daughter, so the director paused filming to try and de-escalate things. There was supposed to be a liaison from the Make-A-Wish style program there, but the catering guy had gotten lost on the way to the park and she'd gone to go look for him. So the director showed Karen the permit we had and warned her a final time she either needed to watch calmly or get out of there. She pulled her young daughter off to the side and started trying to goad her into singing. The kid was better able to read the room than the mom because she was too embarrassed to start singing and tried saying she wanted to wait until she got home. But Karen kept pointing her phone camera at the kid and shrieking. She wanted her to sing right then and there so that she could film it. Eventually, she started playing some Disney song from her phone and the kid began hissing along, interrupting our footage, much to Karen's twisted satisfaction. Finally, the director had it and informed her that even though she technically moved off the land we'd physically reserved, the noise that she and her daughter were generating was disruptive, so he could still have her removed. I'm not even sure this is true, but I think he just correctly assumed that, hello, 911, this woman is harassing a young girl with cancer trying to experience her Make-A-Wish day, wouldn't end in Karen's favor. But Karen's pride wouldn't allow her to simply walk away from the situation, so once her daughter had ceased this loud, off-key singing, she continued lingering even as her child begged her to go play by a pond almost a quarter of a mile over. Karen tried to force her daughter into the shot with hopes it would make us move, cruelly getting her kids' hopes up and dashing them repeatedly. So I guess the kid wasn't especially bright either. She'd keep saying,
"Look, baby, they're making a movie. Quick, go be in the movie so you can get famous. Hurry."
And the girl would run onto our sets, or try to, and a PA or the key grip would return her to her mom before she could run across our shoot. But her daughter's anguished cries of disappointment at not becoming famous each time we returned her to her mom were enough to render most of the footage, if not useless, at least a lot less fun than it was intended to be. I guess Karen didn't think we heard her goading her child into disrupting us with fake promises of superstardom, because when the director came over for her final warning, she tried to play dumb saying,
"Oh, I think she's just dead set on using the picnic space. Since this is the only picnic space in the entire park, it would probably just be easier for you to move, huh?"
She said it with a combination of faux sweetness and imagined authority. Clearly, she had no idea what it takes to set up for a film if she thought we could just move locations on a whim. The director turned out to be bluffing on calling the cops because he didn't want to create a scene until the liaison returned. So, he just had a couple big crew guys keep her and her daughter at bay. Eventually, the liaison did come back, but honestly, she wasn't particularly helpful. Karen deduced that she was who was in charge and who everyone was waiting for in order to take action, so she magically shaped up the minute she appeared and stood quietly to the side. So when the crew member descended on the liaison at once, she just meekly said, "Well, it's fine if she watches, right? People are probably curious what's going on." Thankfully, the girl in the video had been having her makeup done for most of this while we filmed a backup dancer scene, so she didn't really notice most of the debacle and didn't care one way or another. Because Karen had her little kid with her, the girl didn't say she couldn't watch, even though she was visibly uncomfortable with the strange audience. She kept waving to and winking looking at the little girl though, who thought she was some kind of celebrity. It was actually pretty cute and a perfect compliment to her music video Make-A-Wish. Karen hated that and kept muttering to a passerby trying to surmount insurrection, but unbeknownst to her, just about everyone in the general area was affiliated with our shoots. She did manage to find one or two people who were irritated about the picnic area being closed, thinking that we were just some greedy private party who'd sectioned it off from other guests, but then they realized it was some kind of film production and started milling around out of idle curiosity. Again, we were mostly filming backup dancers at this point, a couple of the girls' friends, so I give credit to Karen that if she wasn't paying a lot of close attention to the filming itself, it may not have been immediately obvious what exactly we were doing at that point. That still doesn't make what she did next okay. She'd make the occasional comment to the other picnic people and was winning some of them over. She'd say something like,
but do they need the entire space?
And get an affirmative nod. Whatever. I don't think the other people were really listening that closely. They were watching too intently, waiting for someone famous to pop out in the music video. Our tech people had determined that it wasn't interfering with the audio, so we had begun to ignore her as long as she stayed out of the way. Then the star girl comes out for her big emotional dance scene, and she's really giving it her all. So Karen decides to throw in another blow by turning to the woman nearest to her and saying again, loud enough for everyone to hear,
"Oh god, it's one of those girls who thinks it's cool to pretend to be a boy. I bet she hasn't stopped to consider how long it'll take to grow her hair back."
You'd think Karen would have stopped for a second to consider that maybe the girl was not cultivating a new chic look and in fact had cancer. Or better yet, that maybe that stranger's hairstyle wasn't her business in any case, and maybe her not having eyebrows or arm hair either was a clue. But nope. So our poor starring girl hears this and crumbles up into tears, now assuming that the crowds who had been gathering throughout the day were not doing so because they thought she was some famous pop star, but instead to gawk because she was strange looking. She rushed away, and those standing anywhere near Karen hurried off to make clear that they weren't associated with her. That's when the liaison realized what we had been trying to warn her about with Karen's behavior and tore into her along with several members of the girl's extended family. Like a true coward, Karen didn't even try to apologize. She just bolted as quickly as she could, saying,
"You know, maybe we'll find a different spot because clearly you're busy."
As though she were doing us a special consideration. Luckily, our lead girl's entire extended family was there and cheered her up, and some supportive civilians had showed up with genuine curiosity about the film set, then loved watching her dance for no other reason than they loved watching her dance. So she was happy and having fun again, quickly after Karen skulked off. But still, really quite a hurtful and inappropriate spectacle. If she gets this worked up over a picnic table, I can only imagine when her daughter starts to face life's real challenges. So, what should we have done? As the original poster here said, regardless if Karen knew or didn't know that the starring girl had cancer, why would she make comments about her appearance, specifically at a volume loud enough to be heard by her while she's trying to film her video? There's no other reason for that other than to be blatantly hurtful. I don't think any reasonable person would have the expectation that, oh, if I say this, they'll hear that, then they'll stop filming their video here and they'll move somewhere else, even though they have an entire film crew set up in this location. That's not what her thought process is. She was mad she didn't get her way and then took a jab at this girl who was trying to have her Make-A-Wish day. So if this girl was someone that you loved, a family member or a little sister or something, how would you have handled the situation? Let me know down below. They took my pay, so I took their company. Here's what happened. Many years ago, I got a job with a marketing company during phone deregulation. It was the Wild West, and a lot of small, long-distance companies sprang up, all trying to get a piece of the pie. Eventually, they all got bought up by the bigger fish, but at the time, they were all paying hired gun marketing firms very well to score contracts for them to lock in people. I got a job with one of those marketing firms, a new age capitalism company that insisted we all do yoga and breathing exercises while they rang a little bell and gave us affirmations about how many contracts we were all going to sell and how much money we'd all make. The job was 100% commission, but I was always good at sales, so I looked at the pay scale and noticed that it was exponential, presumably to entice people to work hard with impossible payouts. We were allowed to work as many or as few hours as we wanted, with the payout based on your weekly sales numbers. I decided I would give it a shot for 1 week to see how much I could realistically make before deciding whether I was willing to put up with the tasteless vegan snacks and mandatory voluntary yoga regimen. For the next week, I pushed myself as hard as I could. For 7 straight days, I worked 14 14 hours a day every single day and used every trick and technique I had learned doing sales to score as many contracts as I possibly could. I figured this would tell me my maximum possible income and could decide based on that whether or not to stay. At the end of the week, I had blown everyone else out of the water. In fact, I had not just gotten more contracts than anyone there had ever seen in a week, I had gotten more than any of them had seen in a month. Because of the exponential scale, I realized I was making absolutely ridiculous amounts of money, over $10,000 a week. They had never expected anyone could actually hit those kind of numbers. Coming in the next week, expecting a huge payday, I ended up with only 5% of what I expected. They told me there were problems with a lot of my contracts and that I would be allowed to fix them and submit them a few times over the next several weeks. These problems were things like an apostrophe wasn't quite clear, or the dash in someone's phone number was slightly crooked. They were gonna try and do me dirty. That night, I got a phone call from the company's office manager, Frank, who wanted to meet up for a drink. Curious, I agreed. Over some brewskis, Frank told me that the owners of the company were in a panic because I would have bankrupted them. He said they spread out all my contracts on the floor of the office, then they crawled over them, inspecting each one and trying to find out if I was committing some kind of fraud. When they comprehended that all my contracts were legit, they decided that they had no other choice but to do this to me. Frank told me he realized at that point that if they would do this to me, then they'd do it to him too. And besides, he was tired of doing yoga. He asked me if I would be interested in going into business with him and go head to head with his bosses. I thought it sounded intriguing, but I asked him how he thought we would compete. Frank explained that he had found out that they didn't actually have the contract for our city. They were acting as independent contractors for another company who had the contract to market the service in an entirely different city. They were poaching here because the person who did have the contract wasn't actively using it. We put together a pitch and approached the guy with the real contract, Joe, and told him about the people poaching his turf. We agreed that we'd split it with him. We'd take the upfront money for each contract and he'd get the back end money down the road. It was a good deal for everyone, so Joe contacted the phone company and had them threaten the poachers with a big lawsuit if they didn't stop. A week later, Frank and I strolled into the offices of our old employer. Most of the furniture and all the yoga mats were gone, and there was just a table, a couple of filing cabinets, and a file box with the final pay envelopes for everyone. I made a show of counting my money to make sure it was all there, and the two owners, husband and wife, told Frank and I bitterly that they'd had to take cash advances on their credit cards for this money and asked me that if I felt guilty for destroying their lives. I smiled and said nope and left. Our marketing company made us a lot of money over the year until the company got bought up by Sprint and the gravy train ended. So am I the jerk for taking revenge on this company that tried to not pay me this huge commission? I can't even fathom why this company would structure the commission system in a way that it was exponential, but so that they couldn't pay it. Even if it was still exponential, but they made it so that it would be increasing from 10% of the contract to 20%, all the way up to a maximum of 100%. So at least they wouldn't make money off of that specific contract, but they would still have the ability to pay what they owe him. But they didn't do that. They got so greedy, they wanted to make it seem like they would pay out way beyond whatever this contract was paying them, which doesn't even make sense because that's a scenario that they don't want to have happen. You would think if you're trying to inspire somebody to do something, you would want the outcome of them doing that thing. But let me know how you would handle this. If you were making $10,000 a week in commissions because you went in overtime 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they tried to not pay you, what would you do? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Would I be the jerk for telling my mom she can't get married within 2 to 3 months of my wedding? Myself and my fiance got engaged last year and are getting married this spring. My mom has been with her partner for 15 years. It was never clear whether they were ever going to get married due to other family dynamics. They are both divorced. My stepfather very casually proposed to my mom by simply mentioning to her in early 2021. They didn't start to move forward with any plans right away. When I got engaged last year, my fiance took me ring shopping. I was sending my mom possible pictures, but we eventually went for a bespoke ring. My mom then went engagement ring shopping the next week for hers and only told me about it on the day. She got a more generic, but likely still more expensive ring, which meant she got hers only a week later. Since mine was being made from scratch, I didn't get mine until several months later. Myself and my fiance found this slightly distressing at the time because it was odd for her to get hers at the exact same time that I was looking for mine, and then a bit of a letdown for her to get hers first. We did not say anything though. In the year that has passed, she has not made any wedding plans of her own. I have been planning mine a lot. I had told her that my fiance and I had been looking at wedding rings the last couple weekends. I also sent her some potential pictures of ideas I had. When I asked her how her weekend was, she said she and her fiance had bought their wedding rings this weekend. We were shocked that they had deliberately bought rings right when I had told her we were looking at rings for a second time. My fiance says that I need to tell my mom that she is not allowed to get married 2 to 3 months either side of our wedding. He is worried that since she keeps copying me that she will do this again with the actual wedding itself. I agree, but I know that I can't control what they do, and I otherwise have a very close relationship with my mom. I think she has just done these things thoughtlessly rather than maliciously. So would I be the jerk if I asked her not to get married close to my wedding? But before you decide, there's a few updates. People make a fair point about maybe 2 to 3 months being too long. Also, I probably would ask instead of tell if I decide to say anything. Maybe I should have included this information, but to be honest, I hadn't even thought about why we didn't want them to get married close to us. Due to the aforementioned family dynamics, some of the other family members don't want them to get married. So when they do, it will no doubt cause sulking and rifts for at least a few weeks with other family members. I really want everyone to just be getting along for my wedding. Jumping into the future for a final update, I think I will simply ask her when she is thinking of getting married. I know I can't control when she does, and I don't own the dates, but I don't think that should stop me from asking her if she would consider avoiding around my date more as a favor. She has made other weird comments like joking about borrowing my wedding dress, so there are other things that make me uncomfortable. She has spoken about just going to the registrar's office and having a meal out afterwards, so it is the sort of thing that could be planned on short notice. That's why I'm worried she might do it on the spur of the moment very close to mine. For anyone saying to give a fake wedding date, I know some people plan weddings in 6 months, but most are planned out at least a year in advance nowadays. We sent out save the dates in September, so this suggestion wouldn't work, and also lying to her to try to manipulate her into avoiding my date seems like an even worse thing to do than openly discussing my feelings with her. So would I be the jerk for telling my mom she can't get married within 2 to 3 months of my wedding? What if the OP goes and asks her mom not to do this, and the mom says, okay, no problem, I'll get married exactly 4 months after your wedding, or 4 months before your wedding? The reasoning of why she doesn't want this to happen doesn't really make sense to me. She's saying that due to family dynamics, it'll cause sulking and rifts for at least a few weeks with other family members, but even if that's true, why would that impact this wedding in any way, shape, or form? And why would a range of 2 to 3 months be exactly what you would need in order for that to fade away, where 4 months you're in the clear? Every family is different, every family has its own dynamics. I just don't understand these dynamics at all, or why they would be relevant to her wedding. If this is something that is still concerning after thinking about it, I think the first step is just asking the mom, hey, this is when our wedding is going to be. When do you think yours will be? And starting from that point and talking about why it's important to you for whatever reason. It doesn't have to make sense to be important to you. And if the mother cares for you, she'll probably hear you out. But do not lie and give a fake wedding date like some people were suggesting. That is definitely the wrong way to go. So let me know how you see this. Do you think this is a big deal or not? And jerk or not a jerk, and why? An entitled mother demands that I give my YouTube channel to her kid so he can upload on my channel. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Before I start, I want to clarify this is not a plug for my YouTube channel. I won't be mentioning my YouTube name anywhere on here. This story is about my aunt who demanded that I let my cousin post his video on my channel. I'm 20 years old, living with my girlfriend, and I love to make videos for YouTube. I'm currently sitting at 830 subscribers, and I've been working hard to make my videos good quality. I've always wanted a job as a YouTuber ever since I was 10, and for the first time in my life, I'm starting to see that possibility of it coming true, as I've been getting lots of active viewers and positive feedback. My mother liked that I was following my dream. I was showing her one time the analytics for my page, which excited her because she works with analytics for a living. She was proud of me. However, she was so proud of me that she decided to tell other family members about it. I wasn't upset by that, to be honest, except my aunt, married to my mom's brother and had a Karen vibe, felt like her son was YouTube worthy as well. My cousin, my aunt's son, was 10 years old and he loved YouTube as much as I did. He wanted to be a YouTuber as well and would make Minecraft videos in his bedroom as a small hobby. I guess one night my cousin was showing his mother one of his videos and was kind of upset that nobody was watching his videos on YouTube. So his mother, who had just found out about my YouTube channel, told him to message me and ask if he could upload his video onto my channel, and that's what he did. I got a message from my cousin asking if I could upload upload his video to my channel, and trying not to crush his dreams or hurt his feelings, I try to tell him that it doesn't seem like that's a great idea as it's my channel and I'm working hard to post decent content so I could gain more subscribers. He asked me to check out his video to see if it's good quality, and because I want to be a good cousin, I decided to check it out. The video was of him playing Minecraft, except his PC was a hand-me-down from our grandpa that might have been older than me, which meant the game was lagging terribly. Not to mention, he was recording the entire thing on his phone, propped up to stare at the monitor. Trying to be nice, I messaged him back that it's a great video and all, but I can't really post his video on my channel as I've explained before. He was a little disappointed, but he seemed to understand. He went home and briefly explained to his mother that I couldn't upload his video, and she was furious. Later that night, I get a call from my aunt. This was basically our conversation. I said, "Hi, entitled aunt." My aunt responded saying,
Hi, I was wondering why your cousin can't upload his video to your channel.
"Well, as I told him, my channel is pretty small and I'm working hard to grow, and to do so, I need to upload my content, so when people watch my videos, they're likely to subscribe and such."
My son said he showed you his video. Isn't that a good video to help you grow?
I like the video, but it's not exactly my kind of video that I want for my channel. I only want to post the videos that She cuts me off to say,
I don't understand. He's your cousin. He wants to be like you and help you grow your channel. And you're telling me that he's not good enough?
"That's not what I'm saying. This is my channel and I've worked hard to get where I am. I don't want to risk losing subscribers if I post your son's videos."
And why would you care more of what your fans think than spending time with your cousin? You need to post his video on your channel now.
She said this believing she has any authority over me when I'm 20 years old and not living with my parents. It's not that, it's just I want to make YouTube my job. She starts laughing.
That cannot be a job. That's not possible.
I then get into how YouTube works and how content creators can get paid, and the way she was just breathing and responding with sounded like she couldn't comprehend that YouTube was more than a jokish hobby.
So if you have 800 subscribers, why would it matter since you're not getting paid yet?
At this point, I was irritated and annoyed. "Look, entitled aunt, I have to go. I need to get dinner ready."
Very well, but I'm going to be talking to your mother about this, and I don't think she'll be happy to know how rude you've been to your cousin.
"Okay, bye." And sure enough, she did end up calling my mother and telling her everything about what happened. My mother eventually called me and told me about their conversation. She tells me that my aunt was very disappointed in me and that I was being highly unfair to her son and that I should learn some respect for family. But my mom cut her off and told her that she was being incredibly rude for feeling entitled to my YouTube channel that I've been working hard on. Sure enough, my entitled aunt was shocked to hear that from her husband's sister and hung up. I don't know if I'll hear from my entitled aunt again, but I feel sorry for my cousin who seemed to understand the situation better than her and even messaged me and apologized for her behavior. So, am I the jerk for putting my foot down? This is something that even in my own life, especially on my old channel, I really started to notice when you talk to people that aren't very familiar with YouTube. A lot of times people's first instinct is to put it down or try and belittle it in some way. And not the platform in general, but specifically your efforts. I think most of the time this is sort of a subconscious thing that people do, but sometimes it's not, and it's actually meant to be vindictive, like in this situation. But in this case, the entitled aunt here is a little conflicted because she wants to sort of put down what the OP is doing by saying if you only have 800 subscribers, but on the other hand, she can't completely put down his efforts because her son also wants to do that same thing. So she's living in this sort of contradiction, and she's trying to find some sort of loophole to get what she wants by saying, since you only have 800 subscribers, why does it matter since you're not getting paid? Not listening to the entire point of what he's trying to say, which is that he's trying to get there one day. She obviously disregards that and isn't taking it seriously, so this is the outcome to all of that. This type of mentality is actually a lot more common than you would expect if you're somebody who watches YouTube all the time. You don't really interact with a ton of people that don't really know much about YouTube. But if you were in this situation, how would you have handled the situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? The girl I like hooked up with someone at a party. I am absolutely devastated. I got out of a toxic relationship in February. The entire relationship was quite volatile, to say the least. During one of our fights, she started talking about how she had slept with one of her classmates before we officially became a couple. Her saying that hurt like hell, and I said as much. She essentially just said that she was going to speak her mind and not avoid certain topics just because they hurt me. No wonder that relationship relationship didn't work out. But this isn't really about her. A few months ago, I met a girl online, and soon enough, we were on the phone for hours almost every day. I was falling hard for her. I was happy. I thought we were going somewhere with our burgeoning relationship, but then all of a sudden, she gave me the "it's not you, it's me" speech. She said she still wanted to be friends. I said I was okay with that, but asked her to keep it friendly. Except then she kept being very much not friendly. She was the one who took things forward despite having said she didn't want to. Things kind of escalated from there, and as of Thursday night, I genuinely believed that we were going to give this a shot despite the distance. Then she disappeared for 48 hours. Sometime after midnight between Saturday and Sunday, she suddenly texted me out of nowhere. She was at a party on E and sloshed out of her mind. My guts tied themselves in a knot because I knew where this was going. I tried to convince myself I was just being jealous and paranoid. I didn't hear anything else from her after that, and I ended up knocking myself out with sleeping pills because my anxiety was through the roof. When I woke up, I had a text from her saying she felt like crap. I asked about her night, and that was when she told me that she had slept with someone at the party. I would genuinely take being disemboweled with a chainsaw over experiencing that moment again. At first, I didn't know what to say. Then I congratulated her on it. Then I asked why she would even tell me that. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, but that it would be weird if she had to leave out details from her stories just to avoid hurting me. And that's when it hit me. It was the exact same situation with my ex last year, getting sloshed at a party, hooking up with some random guy, and then not giving a care about how it would affect me. Is it cheating? I suspect most people would say no, but it sure feels bad. But maybe I'm just a jerk for having the audacity to think that you don't do something like that to people that you claim to care deeply about. Or maybe you do, because that seems to be a recurring event in my relationships at this point. So, am I the jerk for my stance on this? Neither of these people seem to care or respect the OP at all. Despite whatever they say, they don't. You're not going to suddenly teach someone to be compassionate or somehow make them actually care about you. This is the behavior you should expect in the future if they've already done this to you in the beginning. And with that said, there really is no other outcome to this other than to just leave this relationship entirely. Don't even be friends. Just totally cut her out and move on. As painful as that is to do, it'll be a lot less painful than sticking around and having to deal with this for the rest of your life or the rest of your relationship until you end up breaking up with her inevitably. But let me know how you see this. Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for telling my housemates not to leave animal feces on the kitchen sink? The house I live in has a pig. My housemates put all the pig's poop on the kitchen sink and it goes down. So this is a bit of a wild one, but I've just had a pretty traumatic experience. 'Twas a sunny Friday morning. I just gotten home from a 9-hour shift and was planning on filling my water bottle in the kitchen of my shared house as I had a fairly long journey home. To my unfortunate pleasant surprise, there was a dustpan full of pig poop sat right underneath the tap. I'm not even joking. It was literal pig poop. Now, it took me a good second or two to realize what it actually was. When I finally came to my senses, I nearly threw up. All I could do was step outside. Thankfully, the back door was unlocked and I tried to calm down. After 5 minutes or so, I was finally able to go back inside the kitchen and sprint directly to my room. I then texted my housemates about this ordeal, and fortunately, they text back almost immediately, apologizing about it and how they, quote, got distracted by the weather. They also said that although it was what they were used to doing, they'll try to stop placing the dustpan on the sink. Curious at this, I asked, would it not be the whole kitchen and all its counters? They said, no, we need a place to place it so we can open the door. That was their response to this. Appalled at this reply, I simply said that the kitchen is a shared space where food is prepared and feces is the worst thing to place there. The final reply that I haven't responded to, I'm that pissed off, was, we don't mind it on the counter and we need somewhere to put it. If you have a problem with it on the counter, put it on the floor and put it back up whenever you're done. Now, I am beyond angry right now at this. I have quite a big paragraph ready to send, but I feel it would end my tenancy. I just want to know, am I the jerk? Somehow these roommates don't seem to understand that putting actual poop onto the kitchen counters would gross anyone else out who lives there who's trying to prepare food on those counters. They even said if you do move it onto the floor, just put it back on the counter when you're done. Even if the roommates are totally desensitized to having poop around their food and it doesn't gross them out for any reason, reason, there's still the actual sanitary issue where people could get really sick. If poop particles start getting spread on the counter and then people roll their dough out on that counter with a rolling pin and all the residual poop particles are just rolled into that dough, that's not going to be good for you. I think in this case, the OP is just perplexed that they can't see how they are being the jerks in the situation so obviously, but let me know how you see this down below yourself. What would you do if you had roommates that were putting pig poop on the counter where you cook? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? Am I the jerk for asking my friend to move a picture of him and his wife kissing to another room because it made my wife uncomfortable? I'm a 32-year-old man and my wife, Delilah, is 28. We lost our apartment 2 months ago and moved in with my mom temporarily. Issues began to arise between Delilah and my mom, and I had to ask my friend, Anthony, who's 31, to let us move in until I get enough money to rent out. His wife was away visiting family and he agreed, but even there, some issues started to arise. For your information, Delilah is very shy around Anthony. She grew up in a conservative home, so it's understandable, but sometimes it can be a bit much, I admit that. For example, she freaked out when she accidentally drank from his glass, and she also once made a fuss when he passed by the guest rooms when she was lying down and the door was open. Thankfully, Anthony was super understanding and we were able to talk some of these issues out. Last night, Delilah was passing the hall and noticed a framed picture of Anthony and his wife kissing was hanging on the wall. She told me about it and said that it made her uncomfortable. She asked if I could speak to Anthony about it, but he didn't take it well. He gave me a look when I spoke to him and said this was bonkers because first of all, his wife put it there, and second of all, the picture holds sentimental meaning to him and his wife, and argued that it wasn't some explicit picture of them, just a normal wedding kiss. We started arguing and he said that it wasn't like it was hanging on the living room wall or a perfectly lit room. I asked him just to be a little more considerate because it's not like I asked him to remove it completely. Just move it elsewhere so that Delilah won't see it or keep it off the wall until we leave. He said that he was sorry but still refused. I explained how Delilah was feeling, but he said again, he was sorry but he would not move the picture. We argued for some more and he said that it's his house and that I was being pushy and kind of too comfortable to make such a demand and be pushy still. This morning, Delilah refused to even come out of the room until the picture is removed. Anthony is refusing, which makes it worse. Now I feel like I'm getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yes, she might just be overreacting, but I feel like this isn't such a big ask for Anthony to decline and turn down. For what it's worth, if it were me, I'd go the extra mile to make sure my guests are comfortable. Anthony has been a friend of mine for 10 years. I wouldn't have asked to move in with him if I didn't have such a strong bond with him. He himself constantly talks about all the things and situations I helped him out with, and we are considered brothers. So, am I the jerk for asking my friend to move a picture of him and his wife kissing because it made my wife uncomfortable? It sounds like the OP has coddled his wife through their entire relationship. He's basically just treating her like a baby that needs to have her wants and desires met at every turn, no matter how seemingly trivial they are or how much they inconvenience the people that are doing them a favor. They lost their apartment 2 months ago, so presumably they're in a pretty bad spot. They already had an issue with the mom, and now their friend is letting them live there for free because he says until he gets enough money to rent his own place out, so I'm assuming they're not paying Anthony. And then they're nitpicking the fact that Anthony has a wedding picture in his own house and they happen to be kissing in it. The OP here sounds like he's totally lost sight of reality because of how long he's been babying Delilah, which obviously makes him the jerk to his friend that is doing him a pretty big favor. But let me know how you see this down below, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for forcing my guests to move to a hotel after they've refused to use the bidet? Sorry for all the poop talk. I live in a country with terrible plumbing. If you flush toilet paper, you are pretty much guaranteed to back up your toilet. I grew up in Colorado, so I know how weird it is to wipe after a dump and then put the paper in a garbage can instead of just flushing it. So I installed a wand bidet in all 3 washrooms in my retirement house. So after you poop, you just spray your backside down nice and clean. Then you use a toilet paper to dry your butt. Nice, simple, and less gross in my opinion. I wish I had these when I lived in the States. So my brother and his wife came down for a visit. I told them the rules for the bathroom and they both said that they understood. Apparently not. They clogged the 2 public bathrooms the first day. Then they asked to use the one in my room. Nope, that's mine. They asked me where they were supposed to go to the bathroom. I pointed them to the clogged ones and offered them a plunger and a drain snake. They said I was the host and it was my responsibility. I laughed in their faces. So they packed up and left. They found a hotel and they are now on social media complaining about the crap hole country that I chose to retire to and calling me a terrible host for inviting them down but not letting them use my bathroom. I posted pictures of my bathroom after they clogged them and asked if they knew who did that to my home. They called me gross and immature for talking about their bathroom habits. I'm lost. They brought it up first. Anyways, they are calling me a jerk because they have to spend money on a hotel when I live in a really nice house with guest rooms. But now everyone who knows the bathroom rules for down here is calling them idiots for not using the bidet or putting the toilet paper in the receptacle. So, am I the jerk? The OP clearly warned them about how bad the plumbing was there and what they had to do in order to make this not happen, but they decided to do it anyway. To not just one bathroom, but 2 out of the 3 bathrooms in the house, and then they wanted to do it to the 3rd. The funny part is that they said that the OP was the host and it was the OP's responsibility, which in a way he did do his responsibility. He told them what the issue was and how to avoid it. How much more responsibility can he take? Does he want them to wash their butts for them? So let me know how you would have handled this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my little brother with my Halloween costume? My brother is 18 and I'm a 21-year-old female. We go to the same university. I play soccer and my teammates nickname me Dump Truck Danny because I have gained a bit of weight on a specific area of my body. I thought the nickname was harmless and funny, and no one on campus really made it weird. For Halloween, I decided to play up the nickname, and I was a dump truck for Halloween. I even put an oversized load sign on my back. I told my brother what I was gonna be, and he said he would never talk to me again if I went through with the costume because it would embarrass him. I didn't think he was serious, and I went through with it anyway. Now he's actually not talking to me, and a lot of my family is saying that I shouldn't have worn that costume. I'm honestly not sure if I should apologize or not. Am I the jerk? I don't think anyone really wants to hear that part of their family members' lives, but the OP here obviously saw it more as just an innocent, innocuous type of thing. It seems like by far most people think that the brother is the jerk, but let me know what you think down below. An entitled mother thinks that she can arrest me at GameStop. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. For those of you that don't know, GameStop is a video game store. I went to GameStop on Saturday to pick up chat with a friend and browse the merchandise. I also wanted to get an Xbox X and a PS4 along with some games. Roughly spend more money there than I ever have before. I was there for about an hour or two having conversations with 3 people, 1 employee, my friend, and the manager. After a while, I was talking with the employee about the specifications between the consoles and the differences between the versions of the PS4. Then the manager stepped out for lunch. After a short time, the entitled mother and the entitled kid walked in and rushed to the Switch section. While I was sifting through the games, the employee went to ask them if they needed help finding anything. She asked some questions, but I tuned them out while me and my friend talked about certain games. About 20 minutes later, I knew what I was getting. The employee was getting everything together. A PS4 Pro, 2 controllers, a PSVR, and 5 games. An Xbox One, an Elite controller, an Astro headset, and 4 games for the Xbox. My friend was talking about a game that he wanted, and I said I'd get it for him as a favor for helping me out a few months ago. He thanked me, and that was it. Almost. The entitled mom and the entitled kid saw what was going on, and when they heard me, they came right over, and the entitled mom asked her if I would help her and her child buy a game. I said, no thank you. She was looking at me like I was crazy and said,
You're buying him what he wants. Why won't you buy my kids something?
I told her that he's my friend and I'm giving him back something after he helped me out. She looked at everything on the counter and said,
How old are you? You're too old to be playing all these games. You don't need them. You should just give them to my kids.
I said, my age is irrelevant. People of any age can play video games, and your children are too young to play the games that I'm buying. They are rated M for mature, and I'm not gonna buy your children things that they don't need. She then tells her kids to beg for the video games, and I quickly turn to her and tell her, you are not a responsible adult and parent by teaching your kids to beg for free stuff. She continues telling her kids something as I'm talking to my friend. Suddenly, I'm grabbed by 2 children pulling on me and jumping and begging me to get them something. I gently take their arms off of me, keep them away, and the kids began crying. The mother said,
You just touched my child, you pervert! I'm calling the police!
A minute before she calls the police, the manager comes back and sees me grabbing the kids and pushing them away and tells me to let go of those kids. I told him the whole story, but he wasn't believing it. He only saw a fragment of the confrontation. The manager talks to the woman and she completely lies about what happened. She said that I tried to bribe her to touch her kids while nobody was looking and to even attempt to bribe her with the games that I was buying. I was laughing at the conversation that was being said so much that I said, "Surely you can't believe this." But he was already on his phone with the cops. The employee was in the back of the building during all of this, and I thought I was in deep trouble because I've seen issues like this, and some even worse, where people automatically go with the woman's side of the story. I may be wrong with some implications, but it's very common for people to believe women over anything. 10 minutes later, the cops arrive. When I try to talk to one of them, she butts in to give her story first. So she tells the same story to the cops, and the manager tells the same, and the cops look at me, and one of them puts me in handcuffs without hearing my side of the story. I am totally freaking out by how this has come down onto me being the bad guy based on a lie. I finally get to tell them my side of the story, and even my friend backs me up, but I was told her story is more believable than mine. And I said, "You'll believe her without proof? They have security cameras in every corner of the building. Look at the footage and see for yourself." The look on her face was life-shattering. She tried to say that she wasn't going to press charges, but they wanted to keep her here. The manager and one of the officers go look at the surveillance video and soon come out to take the handcuffs off of me and apologize. They ask her why she attempted to lie to them and ruin my life and reputation, and she replied with,
"He's too old to be playing those games. He should give them to me and my kids."
They asked me if I wanted to press charges, but I said no. I don't want her to get a slap on the wrist for this. They talked to her outside, and after identifying her, they found out that she had a warrant for her arrest for something else. I was just flabbergasted over the whole situation. The manager tried to apologize for how he reacted to the situation, and I just told him I wanted a copy of the footage. He asked why, and I said, "Ask the cops, cause I will be making a complaint on how you presented yourself." A few moments later, I get a copy and go home, and I didn't even want the video games anymore. A few days later, I found out that that store was temporarily closed down, awaiting new staff members. I may have caused an issue with a retail manager, but he should have handled the situation more professionally. He should have checked the surveillance video in the beginning instead of calling the police first. If he had done that, then this woman wouldn't have gotten arrested, and he wouldn't have been fired. I mainly feel bad for the kids involved in this. They are being raised by a crazy woman who thinks begging and lying is the only way to get what you want in life. So now that you know everything, am I the jerk? I feel the same way the original poster feels too at the end of this, just feeling bad for the kids that have to be raised by this lady. She's trying to force them to beg to random people in stores so that they'll buy them stuff, and then have them included in her scheme to cast false allegations on just random people that she runs into, all on the assumption that they'll never check the video cameras and get proof. I guess her plan here is that she's hoping the OP would sweat enough that he would just buy her whatever she wanted before any logic was ever involved in the situation where somebody thought, hey, maybe I should see if this is actually true by looking at the cameras. And maybe that's worked for her in the past and that's why she thought it would work here. I get that the manager wasn't there at the exact moment this all went down, but it is kind of weird that he would just automatically assume that the OP is guilty without even questioning it any further, because as he says, her story is more believable than his. And maybe it actually is more believable because of how absurd this whole situation is. So if you were in the OP's shoes on this one, how would you have handled the situation? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My husband finally admits that I am ugly. My husband is 30 years old and I am a 28-year-old female, and I am an unattractive woman, objectively. I've always been this way, and while I've accustomed myself to it, it nonetheless remains a daily fact that being an ugly woman sucks. I met my husband 4 years ago, and he is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. He has always and frequently told me I'm beautiful, and somehow sounded honest without sounding like my mother, like someone without another option to answer. Last night on Saturday, he had a group of friends over to our home. They meet several times a month to hang out, catch up, and play games. He has known most of these guys since high school. I was upstairs in the kitchen preparing drinks and snacks, and I was able to hear them in the basement and began to eavesdrop, which I know was rude, but it wasn't really intentional. I realized they were talking about me. A couple of guys were teasing my husband about me, specifically about my looks. I could tell it was supposed to be funny. It was not. There was a point where one of them referred to me as a troll, and my husband blew up and started shouting, "Listen, shut the heck up. I know that my wife is ugly, but shut up. She makes me happy. Does your bimbo of the week do that, Jim? Dave, how long has it been since we've hung out and you haven't complained about your wife? He went on for a while, defending me, but all I could hear was, I know she's ugly, I know she's ugly, I know she's ugly, again and again in my head. It just broke me. I don't know why. I've always known I'm unattractive, but he isn't supposed to too. He tells me I'm beautiful so sincerely and consistently, I'd started to actually believe he thought that. I started to cry and ran into a shower so no one could hear me. When I came out an hour later, everyone had gone home, far earlier than normal. I went to bed and haven't spoken to him all day, but I think I've been able to avoid letting him know I'm upset or avoiding him. I know rationally that what he said was true and sweet, and that I should be happy he loves me and not my body, but it doesn't seem to matter. I just want to be pretty. God, I feel so shallow. I've been crying all day. What do I say to him? Part of me wants to call him a liar and scream and yell and cry, while the other part just wants to run away and never have to talk to him again and acknowledge that even the greatest man I will ever meet can't find me attractive. So what should I do? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Here's a recap from the last post. I overheard my husband admit to his friends that I am ugly, even though I knew this to be true already, and the admitting happened in the midst of him explaining how much he loves me. It makes me feel terrible, worthless, and like I lost something I'd waited my whole life for. I'd given up hope I'd ever have a partner who even liked me before I met him. I lost a lottery spectacularly at birth, and my life feels like a big joke, a cycle of humiliation and punishment I did nothing to deserve. I don't even know how to talk to him. So yesterday, after getting a barrage of support from you guys on my phone every couple of minutes nonstop all day, I decided to try and confront my husband over what I'd overheard. After we were both home from work, I told him I needed to talk. I told him I'd overheard him and his friends, and he immediately started to apologize for them, saying that they were jerks and that I should have told him I'd heard. I had to stop him to let me get a word in and tell him it wasn't his friends so much as it was what he said. When I told him what he said, his whole tone changed. I could tell he wasn't expecting to be blamed. I had the whole conversation planned out. I wanted to explain how it made me feel, how I thought he was really attracted to me, and how betrayed it made me feel to hear him say that behind my back. But I just started to cry and couldn't really communicate what I had wanted to say very well. He was awesome though, and just held me. And then after a minute started to speak like he was reading right out the nicest comments in the original thread, telling me he was just angry and didn't speak very well, that he really does find me attractive even if the world doesn't, and even if his friends don't. I calmed down pretty quick. I'd basically cried myself out the day before. He took me to his computer and showed me an email he sent to all of his friends on Sunday. I wish I could copy and paste it now, but he basically called all of his friends jerks, said they'd crossed the line from being good-natured trash talk to just being jerks, and then continued going far beyond. He said that for an indefinite amount of time they'd have to find another host. They were no longer welcome in my home. He actually said in OP's home. I thought that would make it sound like I was ordering him around being a B, but he said he just wanted to emphasize how wrong what they did was. Seeing him stand up for me again made me happy, especially seeing him do it without talking bad about me, helping me believe it really was just a heat of the moment bad word choice. He told me to wait in the room and left, coming back with the folder. He said he was going to give me this for Christmas, but that he'd get me something else. I tried to say no, but he insisted. It was plane tickets and brochures. He set up a trip in early January to this spa/hotel/resort thing in British Columbia. It was pretty mind-blowing, but I realized that it had to be several $1,000s he'd spent. We budget pretty thoroughly. He shouldn't have been able to spend that without me noticing. I asked where he got the money, and he said he'd been planning for this for more than a year and saving all the money assigned to his weekly spending money and collecting where I wouldn't notice, change from groceries, etc. When I say sometimes I'm not sure I deserve him, understand that I'm not having a crisis I need help dealing with. He's just really awesome. He's taking me out for dinner, so I have to go, but I'll be on again tonight. Everything is okay. Husband is an amazing person. I still wish I was prettier, but understand how lucky I am, how happy I should be, and how prettiness and happiness are not synonyms. So with all that said, where do you think I should go from here? Some people were saying on the side of the husband that maybe he really meant to say, you all may think she's ugly, or even use air quotes, which she wouldn't know about because she couldn't see them, only hear them. But then of course there's people on the other side who think that he said what he really felt, but him not thinking that she's pretty doesn't change the fact that he loves her. This reminds me of a situation in The Sopranos where one of the bosses, Johnny Sachs, has a wife that everyone thinks is very ugly, and when everyone else is at a dinner party, a guy named Ralph makes a joke and says Ginny Sachs, his wife, is getting a 98-pound mole taken off of her butt at this dinner. Someone at that dinner party tells Johnny Sachs and he loses it. It leads to a whole cascade of events. And when he finds out it was Ralph, he wants to end Ralph, and the identity of the person who let it slip was always in question. It changes the whole dynamic of some of the relationships of the most important characters. So something that sounds like it's not that big of a deal to somebody not involved in this situation ends up being a pretty big deal. In The Sopranos, it really severs the relationship he has with people in his life, just like in this story where it sounds like the OP is about to lose his friends that he's had since high school over this whole situation because he's asking for an indefinite break in their game night. So what advice would you give to the OP in this situation? Let me know down below, and what would you do? I am considering leaving my wife because of her weight. Am I the jerk? Alright, before I get called a jerk, let me explain. I'm a 32-year-old male and my wife is 30. I love my wife. I think she's incredibly beautiful, and even more so after she gave birth to our son 3 years ago. The problem is that she put on a good amount of baby weight, obviously, and never lost it, and instead started to gain more weight and was overall pretty depressed. I initially assumed it was postpartum depression and suggested that she go to therapy for it. She went to therapy and got some antidepressants. It took her a while to find the right ones, and she's been fine mentally since she found them. Physically is a different story, however. She has continued over the past 3 years to gain weight. The problem isn't anymore that I'm not attracted to her, but she will die if she continues to gain weight. She is currently 5'2" and 260 pounds with a BMI close to 50. I don't know what I can do. I feel like I've tried everything. I've asked her to go to the gym with me, to go on a diet with me, not to buy fast food, have some active hobbies, but she's turned down every single one of these ideas. I feel like I don't have any choice but to give her an ultimatum. Either she genuinely tries to lose the weight or I leave. I can't watch the woman I love and the mother of my child slowly end herself. I don't want to be the dude who gives an ultimatum, but I see no other choice. I guess I just wanted to ask if I'm being the jerk or if there's another way I could go about this. For everyone in the comments telling me that you can be overweight and healthy, you're right, but no, you cannot be obese and healthy, at least not long term. Heart disease runs in my wife's family, and while your weight might not affect you, being overweight is directly linked to heart disease. I understand weight loss isn't easy. I used to be overweight myself, but my concern isn't that she's not the same way she looked when we got together, it's that she may not live to see our son become a teenager. Jumping 5 months into the future, there is an update. So I made a post about 5 months ago because I was getting past the point of no return with my wife's weight. Now, expectedly, I got called a jerk and a D-head and every name in the book for even mentioning it, but I also got some good feedback and decided before I made any real decision, I would sit her down and let her know how I was truly feeling. Because at that point, we had multiple conversations addressing it, but none of them led anywhere. So after we put my son to sleep, I asked my wife if we could talk for a moment in the kitchen. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the conversation was probably the hardest one I've ever had, because despite what everyone believed, I do love my wife. Now, I don't want to get into every detail, but the basis of the conversation was that I needed her to at least try and be healthier. I also think she needed to hear how serious I was about this, and when I told her I was even thinking about separating, I think it really put the nail in the coffin. It's been about 5 months since then, and I'm proud to say that my wife has lost 35 pounds. I am so proud of her, it's ridiculous. The first month was a hurdle and a half, but now she's going steady and losing weight at a healthy, moderate rate. Recently, she even started to exercise with me. In the morning, I usually jog, but since her knees are somewhat shot 3 days a week, we go walk a mile or two together and either talk or just listen to music together. I know it sounds corny to say, but she even seems happier and her confidence is coming back as well. Well, this was my little update and I wanted to finish it thanking anyone who gave me advice on the first post. But would I have been the jerk for leaving my wife if she didn't lose weight? It seemed like the OP even mentioning the possibility of a separation is what really kicked her into high gear. But it seemed like he was really trying to help her. The fact that he's doing all this stuff with her is probably what's going to end up making the difference. The fact that he goes on the walks with her when they talk or listen to music, and that he wanted to make sure she was okay after the postpartum depression by going to therapy. I think doing the activity together is a lot easier than just telling her, hey, go get healthy, go lose weight, figure it out, I'll see you when you're better. But it seems like it's working out, and maybe part of what made the difference too was explaining the whole idea that he didn't think that she would survive long enough enough to see their son become a teenager. So let me know how you would have handled the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My wife wants to file for divorce after we found out that she couldn't conceive. I'm a 33-year-old male and my wife is 32. We've been married for 5 years and we've been trying to conceive for some time. We ran through an array of tests and found out that she couldn't get pregnant. IVF is not an option. Starting a family and raising children was something that we both wanted to do. It was pretty shocking. My wife has taken it very badly. She has been moody and angry. I have tried to give her space and tried to talk to her, but she lashes out at both. It has been a week and she said she wants to file for divorce and be done with our marriage. She sounds angry when she talks about it. She said it was better that we get it done now. We got into an argument and she said I should find a woman who could give me what I want. I have tried to convince her that I have no intention of leaving her. She doesn't believe me. I don't know what to do here. I know she is just trying to deal with all of this and her emotions by turning them into anger and projecting them onto me. I don't know how to deal with this. She is supposed to be the rational one in the relationship. We have gone through a lot and she's dealt with everything with calmness. I know she is hurting a lot. I wish I could make her feel a bit better. Jumping into the future, there is an update. A lot has happened. I asked her that if she wanted to get divorced in 6 months' time, we could get one, but we should drop it for now. She agreed to it. I took over most of the cooking and I pretty much made her all of her favorite dishes. She was still angry, but less so. 2 days ago, she was finally in a place to process her emotions. She spent half the night crying in my arms. It was heartbreaking, but I held on. This morning, I cracked a joke and she laughed after what feels like a long time. She said she was going to start therapy because she wanted to be in a good mental place before we started any adoption process. There's a lot of work ahead of us, but I am fairly certain I am not getting divorced in 6 months. So, what should I do? Not being able to have a baby seems to be a much more common reason for divorce than I ever expected. This one, though, is different because in some of the other stories we've seen, it was the wife who wanted to divorce the husband because he couldn't give her a baby, so she wanted to move on and get pregnant with someone else. No one specifically, just someone else who would get her pregnant. But in this story, it sounds like the OP is just willing to completely give up the idea of having his own biological children without a second thought because the wife isn't able to have children and he won't even consider abandoning her or living a life without her. He's sort of willing to put his relationship with her before his own needs to have his own biological children. Two very different ways to approach a situation, and it's not like he doesn't want his own biological children because that's the whole reason for her offering up the divorce to him. Whether it's just symbolic or she really means it, she knows that he has stated that that's what he wants. But luckily, it looks like they were both able to come to terms with the idea of adoption. So what do you think you would do in a situation like this? Let me know down below. I just found out that my sister is actually my mother. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 17-year-old male and I just found out that my sister, who's 35, is actually my mother. My sister wasn't around much when I was growing up because she was in college and then medical school. She'd visit on holidays and the weekends if she wasn't busy. Whenever she'd visit, she would spend a lot of time with me and she'd take me places and buy me things and give me advice when I needed it. I always felt like I could tell her anything and she wouldn't judge me for it. She really never got along with our parents and I never knew what it was about, but they would argue often and there was always a lot of tension around them. My parents were very loving and we get along, so no issues there. When she started dating her now husband, she spent less time with me and she would come over less often. 5 years ago, she got married to the guy. I don't like him at all. He's an overgrown frat guy and he's always teasing me or saying dumb stuff. He can never read the room. I've spoken to my sister about it, but she says that it's his way of bonding with people and that he means well and is a nice guy. He's been a pain in the butt for 5 years, and just when I was going to give him a chance, he messed it up. My sister and her husband came over 2 nights ago and were going to sleep over because they live 2 hours away. He took that as an opportunity to drink as much as he wanted. He's already insufferable while sober, so seeing him sloshed is even worse. My sister and I were catching up because it's been a while, and I was telling her how I would like to go into the medical field like her. Dumb husband then comes in and says that it's great that I want to follow in my mom's footsteps. My mom has never worked in the medical field, so I was confused and thought he was just being dumb, but my sister's face went so pale and my parents were very quiet. I just looked at my sister and could tell that it wasn't just a dumb comment. I locked myself in my room and didn't come out until the next day. There was a lot of yelling and I just learned something huge, so I didn't want to deal with it. When I finally decided to leave the room, I saw that my sister was sitting right outside the door and that jerk was gone. I asked her what was going on and told her not to lie to me or I will never speak to her again. She told me that she got pregnant in her senior year of high school and the guy cut all contact with her. She wanted to keep me and our parents were fully supportive supportive of her. She found out that she got into her dream school, but she would have to either give up the school or give me up. She couldn't choose, so she decided to keep both. She spoke to our parents about it, and the plan was to have them take care of me while she's in school, and when she can, she will take me back. I was supposed to grow up knowing that she is my mom, but because she was so busy and stressed out, she didn't think that she could handle motherhood. Our parents noticed that she was pulling away, so they adopted me and raised me as theirs. She said that she was young and dumb at the time, so she agreed with the adoption. She said she thought of dropping out and taking me back so many times, but thought I was better off without her as a mom. As the years went by, she saw less and less of a reason to tell me since I was doing good and being well taken care of. She started crying and telling me that she regrets her decision and wants to be my mom, even though I'm almost an adult, and she wants us to start over as mother and son. I told her I'd think about it, and then she left. I went to speak to my parents. They told me that they did everything for me because they love me, and I'm not obligated to leave now that I know. They said that things don't have to change if I don't want them to. It seemed more like they didn't want things to change. I feel like my whole life is a lie. I know that I was well taken care of, and I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I was lied to my whole life. I don't see myself calling my sister mom and living life as if everything is okay. My parents are the one who raised me, so how could I just leave them like that? On the other hand, if I don't decide to go with my sister, she might feel like I'm rejecting her or that I hate her, and after 17 years, she might really give up on me. I'm so torn and feel betrayed. I can't believe that I found out from that jerk. That makes me even more mad. I feel like I have to pick a side, and I don't know how to do that. I kind of just want to run away and forget about all of this. Everyone is kind of just leaving it up to me, and I don't even know what I want for breakfast on a good day. How do I approach this without everyone getting hurt? Jumping into the future, there is an update. My sister said that she is going to make more of an effort to be in my life. I think therapy might be good for us. As for the jerk husband, my sister really wants us to get along, but I don't see that happening. Maybe he should come to therapy a few times, but only if he's serious about it. She is very mad about him, but she wants to work things out with him. Also, it was really interesting reading stories from people who have experienced something similar or know someone who did. It's crazy how often and common these things are. I guess until you experience something for yourself, it can seem unbelievable. It was inspiring to read some of them, and some of them were just heartbreaking and made me realize I shouldn't let my anger make the decisions because life is short. My parents aren't getting any younger. I wouldn't want my last moments with them to be something so negative. They still have to earn my trust, but I don't see why we can't be on at least okay terms while they do. They've been extremely apologetic since, but actions speak louder than words, so we'll see. Another issue that rose is the fact that I don't know where the other half of me came from. My biological father basically disappeared from my sister's life. I don't know if I should even bring it up because no one else has yet. That will be another topic of discussion for therapy, I guess. So, where do I go from here? What should I do? This situation makes me wonder what would happen if the husband never said anything at all. Would another 5 years go by, 10 years go by, 15 years go by, and the OP still wouldn't know that his sister is his mom? It sounded like she had pretty much come to the decision that she wasn't going to tell him. Maybe she was just going to save it for when she was on her deathbed, or not at all. But now that the OP knows, his sister, mom, has to act on this now for better or for worse. I think most people's worlds would be completely flipped upside down if they found out that their sister was actually their mom. But let me know how this would affect you if this is what you found out about yourself and your family. Do you think it would be a big deal or not at all? Let me know down below. My own manager didn't recognize me at work. I used to work part-time at this fancy clothes store around the corner of my university, and one day we had a staff meeting scheduled after the store closed. I wasn't working that day, and since it started like a half an hour after I finished class and I didn't have time to go home and change, I came straight from university. I studied music and my regular style at the time was very different to what I wore for work. We had to wear natural makeup in the store's clothing. On this particular day, I was wearing black denim shorts over ripped black tights and black platform combat boots with a black singlet and a blue flannel shirt tied around my waist. I also had black eyeshadow, black lipstick, and electric blue eyeliner on. None of my coworkers had ever seen me outside of work, so when I walked up just as the store was closing, my manager came up to me and told me that I would have to leave because the register was already closed. I didn't quite know what to say, so I just stared at her for a second and then said, you don't recognize me, do you? As soon as I spoke, she realized who I was, much to the surprise of both her and my coworkers. This whole thing was made funnier by the fact that she used to regularly text or call me last minute if they were short-staffed, asking if I could come in for an hour or two to cover breaks since she knew that I was always just around the corner. I pretty much always said no unless I had something else on after university that I was already dressed fancy for, and seeing me in my regular clothing made her realize why. She rarely asked again after that. For a little more information, this was a pretty small store. There were only 10 or so employees, and I had been working there for about 5 months, the second longest out of all of us at the time. So my manager definitely knew who I was. Even for people that don't really dress very differently than they do at work or don't wear a bunch of extra makeup, it still kind of throws you off when you see someone you work with somewhere else that is not work. You become so used to seeing that person in that very specific context, it's like your brain has a hard time of seeing them in any other context, at least at first. Let me know down below if you've ever experienced this yourself. Today I messed up by telling a dude that we've been watching him for years. Strap in everyone and come revel in my awkwardness. So for literally years now, this dude has been running around on a 3 square mile zone in my area. The only reason I've ever noticed him was because of his flowing hair that gracefully blows behind him as he runs and the frequency that we saw him out. When he started, he was a little overweight, but the dude is so committed that he literally runs in rainstorms wearing trash bags and is very fit now. So my family and I are watching this guy's transformation happen, which is kind of exciting to me because I'm into fitness. Over the years, I would cheer him on privately while inside my car. I would be like, "Yes, you got this, my dude," in an attempt to make my kids laugh. It became a thing. It was, "There's my dude," or "Man, I haven't seen my dude in a while. I hope he's okay." Or my sister would say, "I saw my dude today." Kind of just as an inside joke, but again, this is for years and years. Even after seeing him all the time while driving, I never actually ran into him in person while on my walks. That brings me to the "today I messed up" portion of the post. I decided to go a different route recently. I look up and through the sunlight in the trees, I see a glorious golden mane of hair and I think, holy smokes, today's the day that I meet my dude. He's getting closer now. I feel incredibly stupid. Why did this "my dude" thing even start again? He's closer now. He's much taller than I thought, and that throws me off, and I just let him jog past. I think, no, I can't just not say anything, right? And guys, I really wish I didn't say anything. I really wish I went home and called my sister and fake fangirled over walking within inches of this mythical man with the hair, but I am an idiot. So I turn around and yell, "Excuse me!" And he swishes his marvelous hair around, still jogging in place, and just looks at me. I say, "We've been watching you for years." And he goes, "Huh?" And I again say, "We've been watching you." Like he couldn't hear me or something, instead of what he really meant, which is probably, "What the heck?" And he's still jogging, like, "What?" I stammer, "We've been watching you run. I mean, me and my family. Watching you run for years. You look great. Way to go, dude." And you guys, I gave him a thumbs up, like a weird Xanaxed up soccer mom. He says, "Oh, cool, thanks," and just kind of runs away. At this point, I feel kind of betrayed. Like he's basically a celebrity in my house and he just says, "Cool? How dare he?" Then it hit me. How awkward and creepy and messed up what I said and how I said what I said. I tell my husband and he's like, "Well, I wish you weren't so awkward, bud." I tell my kids and they are like, "Wow, mom." I tell my sister and she cries laughing because of how typical this is of me. To be so awkward, I mean. Like I literally told a grandma, "Don't eat the baby" the other day while at the store while she was nibbling on her grandkid's toes playfully. Like, what is my problem? Anyway, the main reason I'm even typing this, besides so you freaks that like to cringe at others' idiocy can read it, is that I appear to be some weird version of CIA/FBI/Illuminati/soccer mom to my dude. And since then, he's been nowhere to be found. I have not seen him running around at all, and I feel so bad that I may have, possibly, kind of weirded him out enough for him to change the entire area where he's been running for years, which is awful. So, my dude, if you see this, I am so not watching you in any other way other than to admire your hair and admire your dedication to fitness. I apologize profusely, and if I ever see you again, I promise I won't say anything. And to that grandma, if you see this, seriously, you shouldn't eat babies. I'm not apologizing for that though. Jumping into the future, there is an update. Today I told my mom about my previous post and I made her read it and I made her almost cease to exist from laughing so hard. And then she says, "Yeah, but the guy is pretty weird." And I say, why do you say that? And apparently I am from a family of freakishly awkward individuals. You guys, my dad did the same thing as me and he just forgot to tell my sister or me about it. Thanks, Dad, you're great. So he runs into my dad at the store and he was like, "Oh, hey, I see you running all the time. You're looking great. Keep it up. My dad was a coach, so he's got the weird proud dad thing going on. My dude just kind of looks at him and says, thanks, and slowly backs away. The end. Just kidding. Then my mom proceeds to tell me that she saw my dude running. Please read the following in a stereotypical mom voice.
Oh my gosh, I saw him running the other day. His shoes look so bad, I almost stopped. I wish I knew his shoe size so I could get him new shoes. Should I stop and ask him?
Holy smokes. Don't worry, I said don't do that, Mom. Please. Figure it out. So now that I know I wasn't the first person to tell him that I've been watching him, I feel really bad. My family, ladies and gentlemen. Jumping into the future, there is another update. I've been paying more attention than normal to the sidewalk while I'm driving in hopes of seeing that I hadn't completely obliterated my dude's ability to feel comfortable running on his route. I'm daydreaming about what I will do when I see him. Will I wave? Will I honk? Will I yell, "How are you now?" into the wind as I drive, gently blowing his hair as I pass? And holy smokes, what if I am walking when I see him next? Will my common sense just leak out of my ears completely? And will I, oh my god, pull out my phone, open this post, and grin at him? Will I then awkwardly offer to give him half of my internet gold? Will I make a joke about karma? Probably. I hope not, but probably. So tonight, my mom read my post out loud to my dad while I was on the phone with them. In case you were wondering, he also wishes I wasn't so awkward, bud. But it's also kind of his fault if you think about it. Guys, I know what you're thinking, and don't worry, she successfully censored my curse words until about halfway through when she was having trouble breathing through laughter. Even then, she swore quietly, bless her heart. Basically, she thinks I'm famous now and that I'm going to be on Good Morning America, but like on a slow news day, not like on a good news day. Her words. She's a total mom. After she's done, I'm telling them some of your comments about making shirts and all of your ideas about how to get my dude's shoe size so that my mom, again, bless her heart, can buy him shoes. Anything from using light sprinklings of salt on the pavement to forcing him to run through plaster of Paris were thrown out there. Y'all are a bunch of snipers. Suddenly, my dad says, "Oh, by the way, I have seen him running recently. He's okay." And guys, in this moment, I am so relieved that I didn't mess up this dude's entire world. I say, "Oh, good. Where was he when you saw him? Same route? Oh, outside of his house. Wait, you know where he lives?" "Yeah, that one house on that one street that is not in our neighborhood but on a crossroad. I see him leave to run and I see him get back home sometimes when I'm driving." Look at me. I'm OP's dad and this totally isn't a big deal at all. Shut up, Dad. It totally is. Holy smokes, I say. My sister says, You just made it worse. My mom is basically dead at this moment. "Mom, you cannot buy him shoes and drop them off at his house." She says, "Yeah, that would be awkward." So good news, he's still running. Bad news, we might actually be stalkers now. Final update, my dad just called to tell me he saw my dude. He was walking and wearing a hat. We've never seen him in a hat before, so my dad thinks it's my fault for posting about his luscious locks. His words, not mine. I hope he's wrong. So what should we do? Seeing this all from the perspective of the OP and her family is pretty funny. It's a funny interpretation of the situation because they're seeing it from their perspective, but I can't even imagine what this guy must think when he's running around this neighborhood and 3 people in this family tell him in incomplete, seemingly cryptic ways that he is being watched and he has been watched for some time. You can tell a lot about what somebody's trying to say via their tone, but not if you actually think that they are unhinged or they're a psychopath or something. They could be smiling like the Joker and still be saying things that are scary sounding or dangerous sounding. And obviously it must have made some sort of impact because he changed his route. He changed the fact that he's wearing a hat and he's walking instead of running. Obviously the OP and her family only have good intentions, but the question is, what does he think their intentions are? So if you were this guy in this situation, how would you interpret all of this? Let me know down below. Am I the jerk for telling another gym member to wear a bra? I'm a 25-year-old female and I hate wearing bras. They're uncomfortable, constricting, and expensive. With work from home, I spent the last year and a half basically never wearing a bra and got used to it. Quite frankly, my honkers are non-existent anyway. I recently started going to the gym again and started working out braless. I should note that up until now, no one has ever pointed out anything wrong with me not wearing a bra. However, in the middle of a set of squats, yes, mid-squat, a guy comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder to get my attention, and tells me that my nips are poking through my shirt. I I get really irritated because why is this guy staring at my nips in the first place and then stopping me mid-set to inform me? I get really annoyed, try to finish my set, but then this jerk literally grabs the bar as I ascend and re-racks it for me. He claimed to look like I was having trouble with the last rep and that he had to come over to make sure I could do it, then noticed my nips. I'm really pissed off at this point and I told him I didn't need his help finishing my set, and why was he looking at my chest in the first place? He said he was going to spot me but then noticed my chest and thought it would be inappropriate. I pointed out that the safety bar was set, so even if I did fail the set, he wasn't needed, but he just insisted that people at gyms look out for each other and that going forward I should probably wear a bra so that other people wouldn't get uncomfortable and that it may help me stay more balanced in my squats. I'm literally the only girl at the weight section of the gym at the moment. The other guys who were squatting and failed sets never had to worry about any of this. I've seen guys fail multiple sets in a row and no one ever rushes to their aid. But I have a very slight pause and everyone thinks I need rescuing. So now I'm really annoyed and also kind of uncomfortable that this guy I've never spoken to in my life thinks that he's helping me and then has the audacity to tell me how to dress. So I tell him, you have bigger honkers than I do. Maybe you should wear the bra so people don't get uncomfortable and you won't fail your squats. He then got really defensive, saying that he was just trying to help and then called me a B. Honestly, I'm not sure if I overreacted. I'm still kind of pissed off, so maybe that's clouding my judgment. For more information, I'm not sure if people think I'm actually walking around and it's extremely obvious that my nips are showing. I actually really hate constricting clothes. My t-shirt size is an extra small, but I wear size large to the gym and pretty much everywhere lately. And you can't tell my stomach from my chest. It might have been showing a little bit more while I'm squatting because I was wearing with a lift belt. So am I the jerk? But before you decide, there is an update. I finally did start wearing bras again, and not at all because of this incident, but because I'd been dealing with depression that made me not really try to get dressed in general, not just at the gym. And dressing for success has been a small way to try and get myself back into a better place mentally. Anyway, the guy goes to the gym roughly at the same time I do now most days, so unfortunately, I did have to see him again. Even though I really wanted to grab his bar out of fake concern while he was squatting, I mostly ignored him until 2 days ago. I was deadlifting and recording myself to check my form. The guy comes over and says something like, "You know sumo is cheating, right?" I get this comment a lot, mostly from men half joking, and it's annoying, but I just completely ignore him. He repeats it a little bit louder. "You know sumo is cheating, right?" And I continue to ignore him. I guess he sees that I was recording myself because then he asks if I have an Instagram. I don't post my lips on Instagram, and then he asks if he could follow me. I keep ignoring him. Finally, he says something like, "See, your form is so much better now that you're wearing a bra." And I lost it again. I screamed at him that he is a disgusting, harassing piece of trash. Honestly, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was admittedly very vulgar and got a lot of attention. A worker came over and asked if something was wrong. I said that the guy was harassing me for 2 weeks and asked to speak to a manager. The guy denied it and said that he was just trying to help and that I was being sensitive. But either way, the manager asked what was going on and got both of our stories. Because I had been recording my lifts, I actually had a video of him where he commented on my bra. So the manager gave him a 30-day ban and told me that if he ever bothered me again to let her know and she would permanently ban him. So I feel kind of vindicated, but I also feel a little frustrated that just one man actually saw consequences for this kind of behavior towards women in the gym. It's nice to see someone have repercussions for their actions, but it's also exhausting dealing with this kind of thing constantly at the gym, even if it isn't quite as overt. But I guess I'll have to keep calm and lift on. So, was I overreacting? Am I the jerk? To start this off, how on earth would a bra help you stay balanced? Is that a reference to something else that he just didn't fully explain, or is that actually his thought, that a bra is going to keep you balanced while you're doing squats? What? One of the responses mentioned this and said, yes, obviously. Didn't you know that in the thousands of years before bras existed, us silly women kept falling over, especially when doing hard manual labor? Luckily, we have heroes such as this gym bro to prevent us, contrarian women, from hurting ourselves with our own ignorance. Thank you, helpful man. I really needed your help in order to be balanced and stand upright. Now I know what I've been doing wrong all these years. And probably part of the most strange part of the guy's reasoning in his mind was the last time they interacted, they had a very bad interaction. He called her a B, and she told him that his honkers are bigger than hers and that he should wear a bra so that people won't get uncomfortable and he won't fail his squats. But somehow, magically, he just forgot all of that and tried to start up a conversation again. And in the vein of, hey, I told you so. I knew that you were going to be more balanced once you did what I said. But the final piece to it all is that she kept ignoring him sentence by sentence until he mentioned her wearing a bra again. But in that section where she was ignoring him, he actually asked for her Instagram, which maybe he really was just so oblivious to the whole situation. He thought that they were flirting and it wasn't a situation of just him harassing her. So let me know how you guys see this situation down below. Have you ever experienced something like this yourself? And jerk or not a jerk, and why?
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.